Good evening and welcome to the June 11th meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission and Urban Forestry Board. I call this meeting to order. Thank you all for being here, staff, and participants, fellow commissioners, and members of the public. Should we have a roll call?
Commissioner Bryant? Yes. Commissioner Helios?
Here.
Commissioner Summer?
Here.
Vice Chair Mitchner?
Here.
Chair Davis?
Here. And before we proceed, Marsha, could you introduce again the participants on this cast tonight?
I can do that. So closest to me is Dave Wilgus from our city attorney's office, senior assistant, city manager, attorney. God. I'll just let you go down the line because obviously I can't do it. Wilgus.
Yes.
Russell Hanson, Urban Forest Manager.
Diana Fazeli, Assistant City Attorney.
Attorneys that are, make sure I got the names correct. All right, item number 3 are the minutes. The commission will make comments or suggest edits, and we'll hear any public comments, see if there's any further commission discussion, and entertain a motion. So with that, do we have any commission comments or suggested edits? Mr. Mitchner, anything on your end? Mr. Felix?
I was not here, so
Yeah,
I will abstain.
okay. All right. Do any members of the public wish to comment on this item, minutes approval?
No one online.
Hearing none, I think we can entertain a motion.
So move.
Second. And we'll take
Okay. Commissioner Bryant? Yes. Commissioner Helios?
Abstain.
Commissioner Summer?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mitchner?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes. All right, on to item number 4, all communications from the public. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the commission on any matter that is not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and state law prohibits the commission from acting on any non-agenda items. Are there any members of the public that wish to address the commission?
We have one online, Bruce England.
Mr. England, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Commissioners. Bruce England, Wisdom Station Drive. I got 2 things. I hear that you've got big guns in the room, so I've got to make sure I get names and details right too. So 2 things. Last night at the City Council meeting, they discussed the fee schedule and updates to that. Some of you might be aware that they talked about the heritage tree removal appeal fees. And the council decision, as I understood it, was instead of taking the recommendation of something was $650 per appeal, they decided to lower it to $350 per appeal, but with direction to have the substantial parts of the details discussed when the biodiversity strategy and urban forest plan come to them. And members of the community asked for that work to be expedited as much as possible and for the dates on record to be held to as much as possible so they can get the details. As you know, you've got a lot of heritage tree hearings where you have to kind of hash through a lot of details repeatedly because we don't really have the updated policies yet. So looking forward to that. And then the second thing is actually a question, and I know you can't answer it, so I'll just put that out there and maybe do an Ask Mountain View on it. But my question is, will PRC and or community services be consulted on trees and landscaping details for the active transportation plan or ATP? And the reason I ask is that what I'm hearing about the ATP is that they're not going to be making decisions about trees and landscaping, but rather create space for it. And then others like you all and community services would actually make the decisions about what would be planted there. So that was interesting news for me to hear. So I'll put that there for you to ponder over and discuss perhaps later under other circumstances. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. England. Any other members of the public? All right. Thank you. We'll move on to item 5.1, Heritage Tree Removal Application Appeal for 2420 Villanueva Way.
Oh, I think 6.1 or 5.1 is actually canopy update.
Sorry. That's what I get for looking at the graph. I'm on the wrong. 5.1, canopy update. There'll be a staff presentation, commission questions, public comment. Commissioners can then discuss. There's no motion anticipated for this item. And with that, I'll turn it over to Assistant Community Services Director Brenda Sylvia to introduce our speaker. Is that right?
That's okay. I'll let Russell take it. This is JP. For Executive Director of Canopy.
I can go. Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is JP Renaud, and I'm the Executive Director of Canopy. For those of you who don't know who Canopy is, we're a community forestry nonprofit that has worked in this region for the last 30 years to engage community members in the love and joy of planting trees. I am joined here with our community forester, Fort Mountain View in Palo Alto, Emily Wang, and our community forestry manager, Aubrey Kinnear. And we're here to present our work in the past year and our work ahead. This has been a banner year for our work in planting trees in community in Mountain View. As you'll see in our presentation, not only did we exceed our contract agreement by planting more trees than ever before in Mountain View, but as importantly, our idea that community involvement is an essential component to the health and wellness of our urban forest came to life this year. Just to give you a few statistics. This year, we experienced a 69% increase in the number of people who were interested in our work and the number of people who came to our tabling events, who asked questions with us, the number of people who interacted with us. We experienced a 62% increase in volunteerism. In Mountain View, we experienced a 240% increase in the number of planting events and a 226% increase in the number of trees we planted over last year. Through our community planting models, we have created a momentum that Mountain View can use that will for the next few years to push other critical plans ahead. There is true community engagement in our work and attention, and this is a coalition that you can use to push other plans ahead. And before I let my team talk a little bit about the work that we have accomplished together, I want to explain a little bit the difference between urban forestry and community forestry. Urban forestry is the science of placing trees in cities. How trees do, what trees work best with the soil, what the science tells us about which trees do better in cities. We find that trees live a less longer life in cities. Urban forestry explains how to extend the life of trees in cities. Community forestry does that, plus it requires that we do it together, that we plant trees and care for trees as a community. And we also believe that when we do so as a community and we bring people together, we not only strengthen the life of that tree, but we strengthen the social fabric of our community. So with that, I'll let our team explain a little bit more about our accomplishment this year, and I'll be back. And yes.
Presentation up. Here's your presentation.
We're working on it.
Okay. Just going back to that. Try that. There we go. Darn it. There we go.
Ready when you are.
Russell, I think this is an old presentation. This is last year's.
Jeez. Few icons there. That means you have the old one too.
I just emailed it to you.
That one has notes on it. It doesn't, it's not the clean version.
But there's a PowerPoint presentation attached to it.
For that's. See,
The-
yeah,
I
that's
see
the old
what
one.
you're talking about.
So, yeah.
Yes, very true.
Same. That was really fun.
Not nice. Yeah, but it also has this.
The slides at the bottom.
Yeah.
Box, there's yours. Down at the bottom. Not seeing it. So send it with the attachment. Should be fine. Second.
I know, right?
So you could join the meeting.
Oh.
There it comes. Yeah, see. Yeah, it's not letting me.
It's not sending the Google Slides attachment.
Let me see if I can't share it with you. I shared the document with you, or the presentation with you just now.
With me?
Yeah, to your email directly,
Okay.
assuming that this is your email. Oh, there it is.
No one.
Sorry about this, folks. $9,855. There we go.
There we are.
And where is my full screen slideshow? Oh, I had not one. There we go. Ah, darn it.
It is all
That's
full screen
25,
already.
yes, okay.
Yep.
Next slide.
All right, awesome. Great.
Thank you for bearing with us on technical difficulties.
So like JP mentioned, we've had a wonderful relationship with the city of Mountain View that has blossomed with each passing year. It actually started back with Mountain View Trees, whose programs merged with Canopy in 2019. And since then, we've had a contract with the city. But in this year, as you'll see, and last year, the partnership has really blossomed, resulting in beautiful tree plantings, tree care events, and education events. And beyond our work with the city, we've also been developing a relationship with Mountain View Westman School District to bring greenery to green schoolyards as well. Next slide, please.
To start off, we have the bulk of our contract with, starting at 65 trees was what we originally agreed on last year. And with the blessing of, of the city of Mountain View, we were able to, expand or extend that number to 110. So that included 5 community events, one of which also included, actually on top of the 5 community events, we also worked with Leadership Mountain View to host a tree planting event to further strengthen that relationship between all 3 organizations. We also participated in the Arbor and Earth Day event / Mayor's Tree Planting on April 19th, and additionally 3 tree planting events with local community and corporate groups outside of the contracted 5 community tree planting events.
Yes, and like JP mentioned, what makes community forestry so special and successful is because community is at the fabric and the root of all of our work. So education is also a significant portion of our work with the city. And this is to inspire and inform Mountain View residents, have them open their eyes in appreciation to the urban forest that Mountain View invests so much in, that brings so much joy to their community. And this is done through tree walks. We had 5 this past fiscal year in Mountain View parks, and those are led by knowledgeable arborists who gather up with Mountain View residents, walk them through your beautiful parks, point out trees, their species, and these residents leave with knowing more about the trees around them than they did before. And beyond that, we've been in classrooms as well. We've provided 50 bilingual lessons at Mistral and Castro elementary schools. And each year, Canopy provides and offers a community forestry school course. And this last fall, about 1/3 of our students were actually from Mountain View. And a very large and important counterpart to tree planting is tree care in that first 5 really critical establishment years. And we do this largely through training, actually Mountain View city staff members. We had 3 city staff trainings at these 3 Mountain View parks, where city staff are trained on basic tree biology, how to perform a basic tree health assessment of a tree, know do's and don'ts of pruning, no topping, all of these really important things that we want to equip them with as they're working in Mountain View parks. And then following each tree care training with city staff, community members were invited to join the staff, city staff and Canopy staff to care for trees in the park. So each one was followed by an actual tree care workday where residents come and they themselves learn basics of tree pruning and all sorts of tree care activities, and then have the chance to do it hands-on.
The last main feature of our contract with the city of Mountain View included marketing and outreach as an overarching thing, with 2 special events, tabling events, one at the Harvest History Festival in September. By the way, absolutely so adorable. I loved it. And the second being Arbor and Earth Day, which we do attend every year. Additionally, we worked with the city of Mountain View to host or to participate in 2 engagement events for the Biodiversity and Urban Forest Plan. The first one being at the Monster Bash in October. Also love that event. And the tree lighting event in December. On top of that, we also are contracted to create 4 educational flyers, and the below lists the topics that we are preparing. With that being said, that's really the bulk of our contract, and we have a few lovely photos for you all. The first one is of, thank you, Russell, is of our city arborist, our arborist manager, hosting and leading the Mountain View Teen Wellness Walk at Rangsdorf Park in September. And then the next one, including a really cool photo of one of the Canopy staff members educating community members on tree care, on how to prune trees in December.
These next photos are from a very exciting day that happened not too long ago here at this very park. Here we are partnering with the city to help plant the mayor's tree. And here's a photo of the tree walk, one of the 5 that occurred on this day as well. Next, please. In addition to those 2 events, we planted 18 trees in partnership with the city and with community volunteers right out front. They're looking great. It was a very successful day. We had lots of volunteers, lots of kids, and actually a lot of people that were just there to enjoy the event, walked by and, you know, didn't care about getting dirty and jumped right in. So it was a really great addition to that day, I felt. So, next please.
Finally, we have some photos from our community plantings, one in January and one in March, with the generally number of trees that were planted throughout Mountain View as a whole, or in Cuesta Park neighborhood in January.
So that was our last year's accomplishments. And then for the next fiscal year, which begins in July 1st, wanted to present to you what our agreement will be with Mountain View. We will be planting over 4 planting events, the ones that pictures that you saw before, a maximum of 49 trees. And and then of course, our educational elements are always essential to our work. That we do not do community forestry without making sure that people understand why they're doing why we're doing what we're doing right now. And so there will also be 5 interactive tree walks, which we talked about. Those are essential again for people to understand the importance of their urban forest. And again, the same makeup of making sure that there are city parks, youth and families, and a senior center. Next slide. And then again, the tree care component is essential again to our work to make sure that people understand not only how to plant a tree, but how to care for a tree. Our mission long-term is to make sure that there's a generation of people who understand tree care and what that looks like. For example, topping trees, making sure that they know to identify that it's not the right thing to do. Again, our dream is to make sure that there is an entire generation that knows not to do that. And the same thing, to make sure that our work is communicated to people and that people are encouraged to join this movement that I just described a little bit earlier, is growing with a quick, rapid momentum. Next slide. So in conclusion, I want to thank this city staff, John, Russell, Matthew, Brenda, for being incredible partners. At Canopy, one of our essential components of what we believe community forestry is the tripod of a nonprofit, public, and private partnership. When those 3 things come together and work together, we believe that is the beauty and the magic of how we can grow an urban forest. And that could not be more evident than with our recent partnership with Mountain View Westman and the Bub Elementary model, where the city and Canopy and the district and Google came together to plant 15 trees at Bub Elementary. That resulted in a long-term agreement with the district to plant an additional 150 trees over the next 3 years in this community. And as you know, these campuses are open to the public. So these will be 150 new trees that the district will be in partnership with the city and this community and Canopy to add to your urban forest master plan. With that, I just want to thank you again. You have been with us an amazing movement in Mountain View, in planting and caring for those trees, and it couldn't be possible without your partnership. So thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions from commissioners?
I have a couple. The pamphlets you mentioned, excuse my ignorance if I don't know where to get them, are they complete now or are they in progress? And how do the public obtain those particular pamphlets?
They're currently in progress, and should be available, by the end of this month, which is the end of the fiscal year. But they're currently in progress and well on their way.
And how will they be distributed or available to?
Yeah, so we certainly use our website as a resource for folks to find information on trees, but they're ultimately a resource for the city as well. So we create those, we send drafts to Russell, make sure that they look good and that they're to the city's liking. And then they're also a resource for the city to distribute as they see fit as well.
And as we mentioned, all these engagement events, the tabling events, the tree walks, the plantings, we have a table. I failed to mention, you're all welcome to any of our events. And if you want a tree, all you have to do is say yes. So, and in all of our events, there's a table, there's an engagement activity, and all those resources are there.
Thank you. A follow-up question, where did the trees come from? Do you purchase them or are they made available by the city or the county or how do you come
Yeah,
about
that's a
the
great
trees?
question. Our relationship with Mountain View is unique. We operate in 4 other communities. In this community, Mountain View actually is what we hope is a gold standard. The city helps purchase the trees and deliver them. We, however, and this is an important part of what makes us special, we go and pick every single tree out of the nursery and we tag them. We want to make sure that they're healthy trees that deserve the attention of the city and the adoption of the city. We tag them and then the city purchases them and has them delivered. In other models, we do all of that, which is possible, which is fine too, but this cuts a little bit of the bureaucracy and speeds up the process, which is why we were able to scale up from 65 to 110 in this year quickly. Because there is this kind of like middle ground where we do pick out the trees, but the city does purchase them and delivers them.
Thank you.
I had a question. Do you provide any services to folks that have a mature tree that might not quite know how to take care of it?
So that is beyond our scope. That is what we believe is where workforce development is part of our mission. There is the tree care component is a community component. But once the tree becomes at an age where you need a large ladder and machinery to care for it, that's where our missions moves from community involvement to workforce development. And we can talk an entire other hour about what our process is to make sure that there is a workforce available to care for those trees long term. But at this point, our focus on answering that question is to develop a workforce that can do that in the future.
Yeah, and I would say beyond that as well, while like JP said, we don't provide the actual care for mature trees, it's out of our capacity. Canopy is a great liaison and hub for information of sometimes a process that seems a little overwhelming and there's lots of choices out there. So on our site, we do keep an updated searchable arborist list that's local to the area. And the filters are really helpful and incredible. You can filter exactly what kind of service you're looking for. And so there's also that resource to make the process of selecting an arborist a little easier.
Thank you.
I do have a couple of questions, and I don't know if to JP or to staff. So when you were saying that if we want a tree, we should contact Canopy, the city used to have an Arbor Day tree giveaway. Are these 2 programs now? Is this now the same program?
They are not. Ultimately, Canopy has other resources available to them to provide a free tree, but the city still is offering our Arbor Day free tree giveaway. The hope is, as we move forward, that yes, we would like to kind of combine that and have Canopy actually be the one that's running that Arbor Day tree giveaway as well. Because they can provide all those other educational services where currently we get the trees from what the property owner wants, we'll order them from the nursery, we'll deliver them. And then that's kind of the end of what we see. We give them some basic planting information or otherwise, but it's just not as extensive. So that's the hope that we can, I'll say we're gonna be seeking, hopefully, some additional funding to kind of pay to support that program out of our mitigation fund or otherwise.
So that would mean a new contract with Canopy.
Correct.
And more money.
Yes, correct. And that's ultimately another thing. I don't know how much everybody had picked up on it, but they talked about the fact that they planted 110 trees last year. Target is only 49 this year. Reason for that is there was actually a little bit of a cut from what we took in the budget process. Very small amount, $15,000-$20,000, but ultimately we cut that back to match the budget. The intention is as mitigation money comes in or otherwise, we will fund additional plantings and hopefully exceed that target from last year as well.
Thank you. And that was my next question that has now been answered. Thank you.
Okay, are there any members of the public that wish to comment on the presentation?
Nobody online.
Nobody online. Okay, I think we go to commissioner comments and discussion, no motion. Any further?
No, just thank you for your work. I appreciate it. I didn't go on a tree walk this year, but I did one previously, and I actually thought I saw a work crew out at Bub School maybe in the last 2 weeks. I don't know if that was you guys out there in the front I saw. So so I'm grateful for what you do for the city and also for what you do with the school district, because it's important for them too. So thank you.
For the partnership. Thank you. Thank you. And yes, it was most likely us. We did plant those trees May 31st.
I just ditto, exactly, and just very excited about the growth of the agreement and the partnership between you and the city. Thank you very much.
Sure, I love the community forestry idea, the idea of planting trees and building community at the same time is one that I really love. I'd love to see you guys planting more trees, so I hope that program of joining the two programs happens, because it'll be easier for residents to know whom to turn to. Because sometime earlier this year, I thought I'd actually like a tree, and I looked for the Arbor Day tree giveaway, and I couldn't find it, or it was over, or so having it in one place would be a really good move. And your collaboration with the school district sounds very promising, so thank you for working on that.
I'd like to add that the Arbor Day tree giveaway is currently open for signups. Canopy has been helping the city advertise at any tablings that we'll be doing this summer, as well as on our social media.
Right. For myself, I had a reality check and I don't need more trees.
Mr. Opportunity.
Well, it's so wonderful to have a nonprofit partner in this, and I really value all the education work you're doing and the tree planting, and great positive momentum, and let's keep doing it.
Ditto my fellow commissioners. I'm a participant, a beneficiary of, you guys have worked at our house. I've worked. Picture with Russell standing idly by, he had me next to him, the mayor doing the backbreaking work and pointing at. Picking up on Commissioner Summers' earlier question, I guess my comment is clearly increasing canopy, greening the city is a huge city value. But equally or also important, and something that's very present before this commission, is preservation. So I understand that you don't have the ladders and the capacity to do the kind of maintenance work for heritage trees or existing trees, but it'd be great if you had a consultative capacity that residents could come to you and seek information directly. I don't know if you can go out to sites of people that are contemplating what to do with the larger. You don't have to respond to that. It's just, I think that would be a great expansion of your mission in time as we seek to preserve our urban forests.
Several of us are, sorry, no, I was just gonna say several of us are teaching ourselves as well and studying for our arbor certification to improve workforce development, that goal.
Allison, I thought I saw a flickering hand or two there. Was there a public comment that we missed?
It looks like now there were not initially when we did the first pass though.
Let's go ahead and take those. It's a little out of order now, but I think maybe they tried to comment earlier.
We have Bruce England.
Bruce England.
Hi,
Happy.
Bruce England again, Wisman Station Drive, member of Green Spaces Mountain View. I actually did not hear the prompt for questions, so maybe I missed it. But anyway, I just want to make sure that members of the public hear as much as possible about what the different groups are doing and how responsibilities are split up among, given the city work with staff and with the consultants, and then there's Canopy. And of course, we have Green Spaces Mountain View, and the Sierra Club does work, and the Bird Alliance does work. And I don't think it's always clear, it's certainly not clear to me exactly who does what. And for people who are starting to become concerned about the trees that we're losing in Mountain View and what our policies are around growing new trees and how all that's done, I think it can be helpful, that level of education, and also some guidance on who to talk to about what. Whether this is the time for that to be discussed, I don't know, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention and to remind people who might be listening in that this is a good time to raise those questions. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. England.
And then it says iPhone. I don't have a name, but iPhone.
So the iPhone with the hand up, you're welcome to proceed with your comment.
I think that's me. This is Dan Shane, resident of Mountain View. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hey, I also want to, as a resident of Mountain View, I want to commend the city and the organizations like Canopy doing the tree plantings and increasing the canopy throughout Mountain View. But I also like to point out the extreme importance, as one of the commissioners stated, and that is the preservation of existing natural urban forestry and natural ecosystems. Planting trees has a very important role, but you have to remember that they don't come with ecosystems. Ecosystems that evolved over a long period of time, and it's created a natural ecosystem and a habitat for all kinds of microorganisms and soil critters and so forth. Very important that we think of methods and ways to preserve, protect, restore, and enhance whatever existing natural urban forestry we have left on private lands. And I believe that most of our urban forestry and our highway vegetation barriers that protect the residential areas from exposures to high levels of noise and air pollution from vehicle emissions are on private lands, larger private lands that are destined for development. And we need to look at our municipal codes and our ordinances and see if there's a way that we can at least consider dedicating these lands that have important natural resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. And with that, thank you, Canopy, for the presentation and the update, and thanks for the good work. We now turn to item 6.1, the heritage tree removal application appeal for 1580 Meadow Lane. And I see with the notes that Allison gave me that this is the time to introduce the city attorneys, but you've done that, so we may have Dave Rogas and Diana Hasley joining us. So thank you. So we will hear a staff report, then the appellant will have 10 minutes. We'll get the staff report first so you can pull your desk.
Should we sit for a bit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because Russell can be lying in. So, we'll get to you, and then you'll have 10 minutes to present and speak. The commission will then have an opportunity to ask questions of the presenter or the staff. And in this case, the applicant and the appellant are one and the same. Then we'll open it to public comment. And then we'll close public comment, and staff will have an additional 2 minutes to make any final comments. The appellant will have another 2 minutes. And then we, the commission, will deliberate, make a motion, and vote. So with that, we will turn it over to the Urban Forest Manager, Russell Hanson, to make the staff presentation.
Thank you, Commissioners. Russell Hanson, Urban Forest Manager. As you mentioned, we're here to discuss the potential tree removal at 1580 Meadow Lane. From the overview shot, you can see here, what we're looking at is a tree that's located in the front, but it is not considered a street tree. You look at it from the street view itself, we have one large deodar cedar, Cedrus deodara, approximately 48.6 inches in diameter, height of approximately 70 feet, and canopy spread of about 50 feet. Overall, good health, good structure of the tree itself. The applicant on their application listed that the tree is in danger of falling as one of the criteria, as well as the tree is growing in close proximity to structures and causing damage or will do so in the near future. So when we look at overall canopy, again, our feeling or our opinion is that it's fairly well balanced. It's got from the center of the tree on the left there, you can see, extends pretty evenly to either side, about 25 feet or so. But on the picture on the right, we're looking at what we talk to or what we refer to, excuse me, as live crown ratio. And basically what that is live crown ratio in an ideal scenario, you have as much live crown ratio as possible. So if you have foliage that extends almost all the way to the ground, that would be 100% live crown ratio. You have live crown over the entire length of the stem. As you raise that canopy, that ultimately reduces that. And the reason we look at live crown ratio is simply because when a tree grows in a forest and it has lots of protection around it, it will develop with a very minimal live crown ratio. It will typically be 30–40%. When we get out into an individual tree that's not in a stand, it creates additional stress. By putting all that weight at the top of the tree, it creates a fulcrum that ultimately can create some structure issues or otherwise. But we don't typically start getting too concerned until we get down into that 30–40% range. So in this case, our estimation was that we had about a 60% live crown ratio. So while it may not be ideal, perfectly acceptable, we didn't feel like it created any significant concerns. Next slide, talking about the interior of the tree, it looks like the owners have done a pretty good job in the past of trying to maintain their tree. If you look at the photograph on the left, it's difficult. It's always difficult trying to take a picture up into the canopy because we get all the other branches interfering. But a lot of the interior foliage had been removed from this one. It's natural. We see it in a lot of cases. We've talked about it before. Contractors will tend to thin out that interior. Sometimes that will create structural issues, and that's what we're pointing to on the right. There's two branches in particular. There's more in the tree, but those are the two that I chose to highlight for you. That ultimately, if you look at the overall length of those branches, we would expect more branch caliper or more branch taper as it got back further to the trunk. You can see it's fairly uniform until you get really close to the trunk where it starts to taper up. That's one of the challenges we have. When that interior growth is removed, those branches don't have the resources they need to continue to develop caliper and so forth. And so that is one of the things we feel like has contributed to the prior limb failures that the property owner has experienced, is that it has created kind of that imbalance on the individual branches that we need to kind of go back and think about how we're doing that and focus more on end weight reduction and allow that interior to kind of regrow. So next slide here, we're talking about limb failures. You can see the picture on the left. I've got a little box. You can maybe see the branch on the inside of that box, but it's blown up on the right-hand side there. Approximately 6 to 8 inch branch, I will say, that looks to have failed previously. Beyond that, we don't have any other photographs of other prior limb failures out of this tree. But that was a concern expressed by the property owners. So all in all, when we got to the bottom line of it all, we felt like that the overall health and structure of the tree was good, and that there really wasn't any nuisance damage or interference issues that couldn't be addressed through some additional corrective pruning. As well, we didn't find that the removal of the heritage tree was necessary for improvements because there were no improvements proposed. Staff's evaluation of the tree found that the tree and structure of the canopy is a good, again, a little bit of imbalance on the live crown ratio, but we still felt that it was good. So we didn't feel it met the criteria there. And then in the last case, we just didn't feel like it needed to be removed as a part of good forestry practices. So the decision was made that ultimately we denied the application. That's all I have for you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Now you have 10 minutes to present.
Right.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brad Green. This is my wife, Fawn Green. We're the residents of 1580 Meadow Lane with our 3 children, a dog and a bunch of chickens. It was a great presentation, beautiful tree, right? It's gorgeous. So we've lived there since 2012. And in 2023, it started dropping branches, as was noted. So although the analysis looks good, our experience with it has been fairly terrible. What we started noticing in 2023 is the first big branch dropped. It was about 25 feet long and about 300 pounds. If my car had been parked there, it would have been pulled. Like this branch dropped 50 feet onto the street, and then we had to rent a chainsaw and get it removed. Later in 2023, in the summer, it dropped another big branch on our children's bedroom right underneath. At that point, we took it on ourselves to do what we thought was responsible and get the tree trimmed by a professional arborist. We paid $5,000 and cheap out on this. And then we continued to experience branches dropping afterwards. It dropped giant branches on our neighbor's property, crushing their fence. And it continued to drop on our property, including one recently that we submitted in the photos. I don't know if you have that there present. I have it on my phone. I could pass it around. Another big branch of about 20 feet in length, about 200 pounds. Removing the drain pipe from our house. We would be more than happy to plant trees in this place. We have lots of heritage trees on our property. We love heritage trees. But this one in front is a nuisance and a financial burden, and we ultimately don't feel safe, and we don't feel our children are safe.
I did find a photograph and have shared it with them.
Okay, good. That's good.
And it was part of the original packet that was given to them as well, but.
Right, thanks. The commission now has an opportunity to ask questions of anyone. Commissioners wishing to ask questions? No questions. And we'll turn it over to members of the public. Any comments from members of the public?
We have two online. So first we have Carson Chen.
Oh, hi everyone. This is Carson Chen. I'm actually the neighbor of Brad, and I'm here to support the submission of removal of the tree, because I'm not sure if I'm able to share screen, but I do have a bunch of photos for that I view. I mean that the house on the right here, that's my house. So I moved in 2021. And the tree has been keep falling no matter is winter or summer, and then the branch it just hit the room of my kids' room as well. That pretty scary, and we are not feeling safe as well. It's kind of strange that this tree it keeps. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you for promoting me. Allow me to share some image of from my view. If can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, you can see here. This happens in different time frame. This one, there's actually a big branch that just hit the roof, and also this is taken from my kid's bedroom. And also you can see how large the branch is. I do see another even bigger one that hits Brad's house as well. And every time there's a wind, there is like all the small branches just falling apart. I mean, that's not a major concern, but you can see here, whenever there's a rain, a huge branch is just fallen. And I believe this is the other one that has fallen here. And you can see how many branches that has fallen. Then Brad has done a really good job on taking care of them, but that's a lot. And also this is another time that when the time is pretty hot, and the branches suddenly fall off and actually broke our fence. And as you can see here, it kind of like a tear down, and then the whole branch was just off. So yeah, I mean, I just as the neighbor and also one of the party who is actually receiving the damage or maybe from the tree fallen. So I'm just trying to be supportive of this application and express my concern here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chen.
Okay, next we have Bruce.
Mr. England?
Hi, you all hear me okay?
Yes, you can.
Good. Okay, Bruce England again, Wisman Station Drive, and a member of Green Spaces Mountain View. As you know, we raise concerns regularly about trees being removed in our city because we believe in community-wide canopy and maintaining trees, existing trees as much as we can. In this case, we're uncomfortable raising objections with individual property owners because we feel like it pits us neighbor against neighbor, and we really would like better guidance from the city through, as I said before, through the biodiversity strategy and urban forest plan. In this case, you might very well want to make a decision on behalf of the property owner because they've demonstrated, including with photos, that there are big branches falling off of it. And that certainly is an area of concern. So I mainly wanted to say that overall, members of the community are very interested in maintaining our tree canopy as much as possible. If there are ways to mitigate this situation with this tree, it's a beautiful tree. So if there's a way to mitigate the problem with the falling branches, maybe that's something to explore. We'd like to maintain trees, but safety concerns certainly need to be paid attention to as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. England. Any other?
We have two more. So iPhone again, I'm thinking it's Dan.
Yes, I just unmuted. Hi all. Hey, I just want to start off by saying that I totally understand the concern of this resident and the safety issue and his concern about the safety of his children and his family and his car and that kind of thing. I totally understand that. But we also have to understand that we're all responsible, all of us, for environmental stewardship. And that is to maintain a healthy tree as best we can, because the tree is very important natural resource for the city, for the environment, for the habitat, and for a lot of other things. So maybe if from what I see as another resident, it might be your responsibility to do the environmental stewardship and to hire an arborist to make that tree safe. If it needs to cut off unstable branches, then you're going to have to pay for it. And I think it's important that people realize they need to be educated. Everybody needs to be educated and bring public awareness to the importance of trees as a natural resource and a canopy that provides shade and wind protection and all the other benefits that we get out from trees. It's more than just something nice to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. And we have one more, Allison.
They lowered their hand, it looks like.
Is that all right?
Well, last call for public comment, going once, going twice. Okay, we're done with that. So staff has an additional 2 minutes to make any additional comments that you wish to make based on anything you've heard.
Again, our feeling is I think the property owner has done a reasonable job of trying to maintain this. I would just say that we could do it a little bit differently and it would reduce the amount of risk presented from the limb failures. And we're happy to work with the property owners, or otherwise the decision is to keep the tree.
Thank you. And the appellant has an additional 2 minutes. Anything you'd like to say or respond to?
Yeah, I'm glad people called in. I thank everybody for calling in, supporting or having other opinions. To one of the callers who said, you know, we need education. We actually did this. We actually paid for an arborist, $5,000. It's not a small amount. And if the recommendation is to pay for another arborist, I feel like that's definition of insanity, to do the same thing and expect a different result. I understand we might have better guidance, but given the amount of damage that you've seen already, I really would urge you to help us feel safe, help us reduce damage and risk to the Mountain View community, and then help us plant more trees. Like, we have a large property. We would love to, you know, be part of this. We already have a bunch of heritage trees. We'd love to plant more to compensate for this one we take out.
No, that's it. We love trees. And so we really was genuine to save it. You know, that was our first go-to, is save the tree because it's so gorgeous. But it is one of like the biggest trees in our neighborhood. And the last 2 years in our neighborhood, there have been 2 trees that fell, one crashing the roof, right? And so with the current climate, that the winds are getting more persistent, more regular, and more strong, it makes myself and my children very nervous whenever the wind comes and we're just like corner on one side of the house. So it's very visceral. And Carson, we didn't ask him to climb, but it was very, a pleasant surprise and so forth. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. The commission will now deliberate, so yeah, I would suggest having a seat. This might take a few minutes. So it's up to us now to discuss and potentially make any motions here. Commissioner.
Yeah,
I'll kick it off.
I'll kick it off. You know, to me, you know, this is a very attractive mature tree. You know, it's unfortunate that some of the lower canopy has been removed, but even with that, I think the tree's in good condition. It's well balanced. Specifically in this case, you know, we're looking at a cedar, which falls into a special Mountain View protective category of only needing 12 inches of circumference to be heritage, and this one has 146 inches. You know, one of the things that I noticed, and I found some of the other commissioners noticed, there was another tree 50 yards down the street from you that came up for an appeal, you know, maybe a year or 2 ago, and probably even more full than your tree, and you know, that appeal was denied, and they've done a wonderful job pruning that tree. It's beautiful now. I mean, it's more gorgeous than it was when we first looked at it. You know, so I guess I agree with the staff report that I think mitigation for potential limb failure seems possible by reducing some of the end weight of the branches. And I think that pruning, you know, I sort of walked around the base of the tree. I think that pruning could also remove most, if not all, of the canopy that overhangs the house. There's just a little bit that's overhanging the houses right now. You know, and obviously winds could blow things a little bit, but the weight probably would bring it more straight down. You know, it's hard for us because we've had a number of people that come and there are mature trees and they're worried about, rightly so, of branches that are falling and but man, it's a tough one. It happens with mature trees, and if we eliminate every tree that's dropping branches, you know, we wouldn't have a lot of mature trees. So for me in this case, you know, I don't think that the removal criteria are met. I'll be siding with denying the appeal and upholding the staff decision to deny removal of this tree. I would add that if this appeal ends up being denied, and we'll see how it goes, I hope that the city staff can work with the owner to make suggestions for pruning cuts and strategies that would reduce the likelihood of future limb failure and save you the need for calling out an arborist to do that consulting work for you. I would hope the city could help with that. So those are my initial thoughts.
Thank you, Commissioner Mitchell. Commissioner Fieldhouse?
As Commissioner said, when you drive down Barbara, and and the location of your home, it's just a gorgeous picture as you look at that tree. However, I also feel for you with regards to concerns, for both you and your neighbor. I am kind of interested in what limb and because of the majesty that the tree provides to the neighborhood and where your house is located. I'm very interested in knowing whether the limb and weight reduction could be a solution and to give it a chance. And so I'm still a little bit up in the air, like to hear what the other commissioners say, but I'm kind of leaning towards encouraging us to hold on to it, to see if we can't do something with regards to limb and weight reduction. And so that it can continue to provide for a wonderful asset to the neighborhood as it is right now.
Commissioner Wang?
Yes, so I don't really have anything to add to what my fellow commissioner said. It is a beautiful tree, and I hear you very clearly that you know it's a beautiful tree and that you wanted to keep it and that you are made nervous by the falling branches. You know, I completely sympathize. However, we have an ordinance and we have staff who has looked at, whose task was protecting the tree and protecting the safety of our residents. And I don't see that we, by the ordinance that we have, that we can say that the tree needs to go. So it seems to me the tree does not meet the requirements for growing, that there are ways to reduce the length of the branches in such a way that they will be less heavy and less likely to fall. And I did notice that many of the branches that had fallen were basically bare for most of their length. And then at the end, there was a lot of weight. Which reminds me of a branch that just fell in my own garden, and my metal arch is no longer a metal arch. It's got a very strange shape at this point. It's true that it's one of the bigger trees in the area, and I guess other people have taken out their trees and you have not taken out your tree. And which thank you for doing that. But I don't, at this point, I'm very much for accepting staff's recommendation.
Commissioner Summer?
Thank you. I want to say off the top, I do find myself in agreement with my fellow commissioners, but I do also just want to express that I too would be as concerned as you are if I were in your place. However, I think given that there's not really a basis for the removal in the city's ordinance, it is worth giving the pruning technique that staff is suggesting a try. And I think that, you know, I think you'll have a good experience with it, and it's worth investing in this large tree. It has a wonderful impact on the whole community. And, you know, I think if there's, if things don't work out in the future, the item can be bought back. I think there would have to be a year, 2-year period, but in any event, I'm not able to vote to remove the tree.
I think I concur with the sentiment of my fellow commissioners. I hope on this 2-year thing, if we so move to deny the appeal and encourage the resident to work with the city, those actions are taken and they are not successful, I hope the resident can come back quickly and reapply. But this tree is exactly the tree that this ordinance is designed to protect. It is a majestic tree. It's a healthy tree. It is doing what a deodoros cedar does, I believe. I have 2 very large deodoros cedars at my house, and they drop stuff. They drop big balls too. So it's very difficult for this commission. We certainly don't want to tell residents on the private property to ignore their safety concerns. We all have those. But I too believe that staff has a professional outlook, and I will defer to that judgment on the viability of the tree with sufficient action. It is, I know from experience, it's expensive to have the arborist come out. It's really expensive to take the tree down. So I think I will agree with my fellow commissioners that in this instance, while we truly have empathy for the safety concerns, that those can be mitigated potentially with more attention to the maintenance of the tree, and that we should preserve this tree. So I think we have a general agreement here. Am I reading the room correctly to say that the commission is leaning towards denying the appeal?
Yes.
All right, so with that, I think we'll take a motion.
Sure, I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution of the Urban Forestry Board of the City of Mountain View to deny the appeal, uphold staff's decision, and deny the removal of one heritage tree at 1580 Meadow Lane to be read in title only, further reading waived, attachment one to the memorandum.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have Commissioner Bryant,
Yes.
Commissioner Helios,
Yes.
Commissioner Summer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Mitchner.
Yes.
Chair Davis.
Yes. All right, thank you. And we hope we can work with the staff, urban forestry staff, to help address the issue. And we will now turn to another heritage tree removal application appeal, this for 2424 Whitney Drive. We'll follow the same process. Staff will present a report. The appellant will have 10 minutes.
Okay, just want to make sure.
The applicant will have 10 minutes. The commission can ask questions. Then we'll have public comment. Then staff will have an additional 2 minutes. The applicant will have 2 minutes. The appellant will have 2 minutes, and then the commission will deliberate. So with that, we again turn to Mr. Hanson.
Again, thank you, Commissioner. So in relation to this appeal, we're talking about 2424 Whitney Drive. Again, give you a general idea as to where the tree is located. Front of the property, it is not considered a street tree. Probably 10 to 15 feet from the structure of the home, only about 4 or 5 feet from the arbor that is out in front of the property. The tree itself is a Pittosporum undulatum, or a Victorian box by its common name. Has a diameter of approximately 16 inches, a canopy of approximately 30 feet, and height of approximately 30 feet, and a canopy of approximately 20 feet of spread. In general, we assign kind of a fair health structure rating on this one. In particular, the health rating is the one we absolutely recognize. The canopy is thinner than what we would have expected to see on this type of a tree. But beyond that, the overall structure, we felt like it was okay, I'll say. So the applicant themselves listed 5 different criteria for the removal. The first was that the tree was in poor health. The second was the tree is diseased with pests, insects, and or beetles. The third criteria being the tree is near, third criteria is tree is near the end of its lifespan. Fourth being tree has poor structure or unbalanced canopy. And then the fifth is that it's growing in close proximity to structure and causing damage or will do so in the near future. So when we look at the individual tree itself, again, looking at the overall canopy, while it is not a completely vertical stem, the general form of the tree is fairly well balanced. We did not see that it was unbalanced in any one particular direction. Beyond that, again, canopy definitely was thinning. We recognize that. We weren't able to identify the specific reason for decline, but we absolutely noted that The irrigation in the area was somewhat limited, that there wasn't a lot of significant landscape that required a lot of water or otherwise. So the tree is likely not getting a lot of supplemental irrigation that it may be depending upon. The soil itself is fairly open, which will lead to soil compaction as well as drying of those soils a little bit faster. If that soil had mulch or otherwise, it would better retain that moisture in the soil. So that open soil surface was another thing that we feel like contributed as a potential cause of the decline. But want to be very clear, pittosporums in general are known for this type of decline. Nobody in the industry has really determined why. It is kind of the factors that I'm talking about here. We look at water, we look at all kinds of different factors, and we haven't been able to identify any particular pest or disease, bacteria, fungus, or otherwise, that we can identify that is common amongst all of these when we do see the decline. In terms of the trunk, the structure of the tree, there's a cavity at the lower base of that tree, fairly extensive in terms of size, probably 12 inches plus in terms of the size of the actual cavity itself. But as you can see from the photo on the right, there's a decent amount of what we call wound wood or callus roll, where if there's a wound on that trunk from a limb being pruned off or a limb failing off or otherwise, the tree's natural physiological response is to form that wound wood to kind of seal that off and prevent the decay from spreading too far within that trunk or otherwise. When we actually sounded the trunk with a mallet, fairly sound. We didn't feel like the decay extended too far beyond what we were able to identify with our hand or a little, pokey tool, that kind of a thing. I would note as well, that picture on the right, there is an additional cavity towards the bottom of the tree. But again, when we kind of examined that, all of that wood seemed fairly sound. It did not have anything that led us to believe that it was punky, that it was decaying, that it was the potential that that would fail at the base of the tree. So ultimately, we didn't feel like that was anything that we could justify the removal for. The property owner did provide evidence of beetle activity. You can see in the photograph on the left there was at least one beetle that was noted by the property owner. Unfortunately for us, the photograph isn't as good as I would hope. So I'm not able to identify the specific beetle, but looks very, very similar to a common ground beetle or otherwise that tend to live in the soil, live on decomposing material, that kind of a thing. And so we really just didn't feel like it was one that was contributing to any of the concerns with the tree. Verification through the UC co-op system, they have an IPM page that talks about common pest problems, et cetera, that they experience. And as you can see from the photograph on the right, doesn't really list beetle activity as anything that's too common or too significant for them. So doesn't mean that they don't have beetles occasionally, but I think they're more opportunistic beetles where they're living off of already decaying material or otherwise. They're not actually causing additional damage, I will say. Lastly, again, a photo from back underneath that shows that arbor that we talked about a little bit earlier. You can see, 3 to 5 feet ultimately is what it's got a clearance from that arbor. And then the house is again 10 to 15 back. There is a walkway you can see in the photograph there that comes out the front door and towards the driveway. So there is, some exposure to the tree by the property owners on a regular basis. But again, they hadn't necessarily reported limb failures or other concerns to where we feel like that presents too much of a hazard. And then in terms of, proximity, et cetera, we just did not see any damage, any significant damage to the pathway, to the house, to the arbor, to that fence, or any of the other kind of landscape area out there that we didn't feel couldn't be addressed very simply or easily, but it did not require removal of the tree. So ultimately for us, again, overall health and structure we felt was fair, even though there was some decline. We felt like through some additional corrective pruning to remove some of that dead wood and providing some supplemental watering may give this tree an opportunity to improve and turn around and kind of refoliate. So that's kind of where we went with the first criteria. Second one, we didn't find it was necessary to construct because there were no improvements proposed. Again, health and structure of the canopy is fair, although we felt like it would benefit from increased watering and perhaps even some fertilization. So we felt like that needed to be tried before it would be justified under that criteria. And then lastly, we did not find the tree needed to be removed for good forestry practices. But I will be honest, that is the one part that we looked at very, very long and went, you know, it may be difficult to turn this one around and maybe it is best to take it out and get another one put in, but ultimately we just didn't feel that it rose to that criteria enough. We felt we needed to do just a little bit more to make sure that the tree was not savable, I'll say. So I will end there.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. The appellant, we have a separate appellant in the applicant.
Is that-
They're both the property owners.
Oh, they are?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
That was my mistake. I guess it's the
Okay.
same person.
So the applicant and appellant owner may address.
Hi there. Thanks for meeting with us. I just wanted to note that you know, we've had this arborist out and he said, and I think he's on out there somewhere, but you know, this tree's really not doing well. And I thought, okay, well, I'll just wait till it, you know, starts being a problem before I spend money on this thing. And I just saw it during the winter, just dropping large branches and just swaying in the wind. And I thought, you know what? We just had a loquat tree fall on our power lines at the back. Looked perfectly healthy. It was wonderful. And there was no root. I mean, the roots were totally rotted out. So I thought, okay, he's saying this has, you know, some root rot and things like that. And so I thought that's when I put in the note for the heritage tree removal. But since I've even put in that uh, um, request, I've noticed further decline and that cavity you could see at the bottom. I can stick my entire hand in there. I don't know if I can share the video. And I've also probed it with a 12-inch wooden barbecue skewer, and it goes all the way through the tree. And you can see, you know, I don't know if it's termite poop or whatever it is. It's just rotten all inside of the tree. So it's really, I mean, that was just eye-opening to me. Like this has a problem that I can see. It's hollow inside and I can stick my hand in there. I don't see healthy trees that you can do that. And this probe was just a thin little wooden barbecue skewer and it can go 12 inches into the tree. I have a video of it. Can I share it, Mike? Can you help me share it? But anyways, so then a second arborist commented on the condition of this tree and found it to have maybe oat root fungus. I've noticed whether it's lichen or some kind of fungus or mold, there's little white spots. This is even in the last couple weeks, and the tree's sloughing off the bark at the bottom. There's a lot of little nodules that I'd like to note that actually just a friend that came over for a barbecue said, what's this, you know, thing posted outside? He's a horticulturist and the superintendent at a large country club. And he said, this tree is terrible. Like, you know, he's showing me all the signs of distress of the tree. So, I mean, that's 3 experts, one off the record, that are commenting on the condition of this tree. And so, you know, I love trees. We have 2 gorgeous, humongous pepper trees, another loquat tree. We've planted 24 podocarpus trees. So if it was worth saving, I would love to save this, but you know, like the last appeal, I don't feel safe, especially after finding that hollow with, you know, my own hands and probing the tree. It just spans the diameter of the tree, and I think I'm not sure if that was probed even during the during when Matt came out to check on the condition of the tree. And there's just a lot of ants, aphids for sure, and I've seen beetles, at least 3 in there. So it's hard to even see in there, but you can tell that it's, you know, dry rot. I also noticed that there had been a sprinkler hitting the tree that was kind of hidden, you know, from the previous owner that has just been hitting this tree. Then we turn it on, you know, with the drip system. So I think that might have contributed to this rot. It's just hitting this pocket. And I would like to argue that I think it's been overwatered, like the loquat at the back of the tree, and the trees on the property have not been properly cared for. So we'd love to put in something new and beautiful, and I would also like to argue that the trunk of this tree is probably about 12 to 14 inches from, the front of this arbor here, which is attached to our post and beam house. So, that's another huge concern. Our neighbors are also concerned. Their cars are parked right there. So, there's just a lot of concern. I'd love to just get something new and beautiful planted there.
Small trunk too. So not much
Yeah,
bigger.
it is just qualifying as a heritage as well. I'd just like to note.
Okay, thank you for your comments. We'll now have commission questions. Mr. Mitchell.
So I have a couple questions. So the first one, the report states, and you talked about it a little bit, but that the decay pockets were probed. What does that mean? Can you elaborate sort of on what level of investigation you
Sure.
did into the decay?
Sure, absolutely. So similar to the video that the property owner had shared, we will do similar, that we have we have long screwdrivers, we have all kinds of devices, just depending on who's doing it and what day, et cetera. But we will typically probe to see how far up, how far down, how far to the side, so that we can get an idea as to the extent of decay. In the industry, we do have standards where we can take, I'll say, certain formulas for the amount of decay that's on an interior of a tree that help us determine how much structure loss has occurred and if it presents a challenge. And so typically, very minor, I'll say, investigation where we're probing it with a stick or otherwise. And then as well, either a wood mallet or a rubber mallet where we will do some sounding. Where just like on a wall where you're looking for a stud, you can sound the tree and you will see a difference in, I'll say, the density of the wood as to how it sounds. And when we sound it all around there, the majority of what we were sounding on was callus wood or wound wood, or the callus growth that was on the tree. But we did also extend out beyond that, because there's a process that occurs when a tree is wounded, that wound wood actually has, again, a physiological process where it lays down different hormones, et cetera, that make it more resistant to decay. And so while that wound wood may not always be decaying, the other pieces around it. So we will typically explore all the way around the side of the wound as well. That's really the extent of it, is just a simple probing and then a sounding of it, just to try and determine how much decay we feel like we have there.
So my other question, we've previously been instructed prior to you being in your job, that embedded bark creates a weak point in a tree's structure, and that an embedded bark area has an increased likelihood of trunk or branch failure. So I think maybe one of the arborist reports, or, I definitely went and looked at it myself. There is, at about the 20-foot mark, there is an embedded bark, significant embedded bark. And I'm wondering if you can comment on that in general, and also, if you noticed it and you have any comments on the embedded bark for this particular.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we did note that as well. Absolutely, the risk increases when we have embedded bark, because ultimately that doesn't provide good sound attachment for those two pieces. Also an opportunity, because those had previously perhaps been exposed to air or otherwise, it's going to increase the opportunity for decay or otherwise. But what we really look at when we talk about embedded bark is those situations where we have a very tight crotch, that two branches come up and they extend a very good distance away from that, because again, it's really that fulcrum point where those two branches have that embedded bark. If we've got a big tall branch with a lot of weight that's blowing in the winds, et cetera, it's going to put more stress on that union. And that's really what we're trying to avoid. So in this case, most of the embedded bark did not have what we would consider to be really long, heavy branches or otherwise, where we were going to see, I'll say, that conflict, those issues where we were concerned about that being additional decay or a weak point, that it could fail. Not an exact science. We don't have any specific formulas or anything else that tell us anything about that. So it really is just based off of our experience.
Thank you.
I noticed when I was visiting that there is another tree on the other side of the pathway to the front door. And then there's a humongous tree, and excuse my ignorance of not knowing what kind of a tree it is. On the other side of the driveway, I'm not sure if it's yours or your neighbor's, but it is rather huge. And extends over their property as well, over the driveway, almost all the way over to the pathway to the front door. And I was wondering, are those two trees having an impact? Are there too many trees in one spot that they cannot share? They're not playing together very well.
Ultimately, the larger trees that maybe the neighbors or otherwise on the opposite side of the driveway is absolutely going to influence in terms of sunlight that gets there the afternoon, et cetera. But for the most part, that canopy was not intermingled with the one tree in question that we're talking about. The two that are on either side of the walkway absolutely have some intermingled canopy, et cetera. But again, I don't think it's really creating any significance. It may have an influence as to why it's not as foliated as we would have liked. Again, if it's not getting as much sun or otherwise, it's going to drop some of that foliage. So there is that potential, but for the rest of the exposure that it has on the southern side, et cetera, we just really didn't feel like that was a tremendous impact, I'll say.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so the canopy is quite thin, and neither of the two trees along the pathway into the house looks healthy or happy. I mean, I don't know about healthy, but happy, certainly not. And so in terms of the tree that we're discussing, you're feeling that a certain amount of pruning and maybe watering might give the tree a chance to recover and add some more leaves. Is that what you're saying? Because at this point, it's not a happy tree.
Absolutely correct. Yes, ultimately, it is our opinion that removing some of that dead wood on the interior will benefit the overall health of the tree. It will reduce the amount of decay and other things that are present. And then above and beyond that, again, just simply based off of the information that we had, et cetera, what we're seeing in terms of the site conditions, pittosporums are typically fairly drought tolerant when they are fully established. So it's, I'll say, surprising that it's doing as poorly as it is. But again, it was just our opinion that we should at least try to increase the watering to the root system, et cetera. Maybe apply a low nitrogen fertilizer or otherwise, just to give it one more attempt to try and recover. Let's let it grow for another season once it has that water, once it has that fertilizer. And if it continues to decline or if it continues to just completely collapse, you know, absolutely. But it's relatively inexpensive to take those few steps to try and preserve this tree with where we went.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions for staff. I think you sort of answered just one of them. I was looking on in Canopy's tree library, and I went to their website while they were talking, and they have a really good tree library. They list the Victorian box as a moderate water need. Is that your kind of general understanding, or?
It depends on where you are. What I'm using is there's a WUCL's list, water use classification of species for plants. Depending on the region that it is, Northern California, it's considered low. You get to Southern California, it's more moderate.
Okay, great. And then my other question was, both in the video and so that the homeowner provided and some of the photographs that staff provided, it looks like there's these brown wounds on the base that have a powdery substance. Did you determine what that was? Is it termite frass or is it some other?
That is where we ultimately went with it, is carpenter ants, termites, or otherwise, I'll say those opportunistic animals that take advantage of that dead wood decay. They don't typically go after live wood.
So would you normally expect to see that type of?
Yes, absolutely. We see termite activity, ant activity, et cetera, on a lot of our mature trees because it's typical that they will start to have decline or die back in that heartwood.
And so, while you noted it, you didn't consider it a justification for the removal.
That is correct.
Correct statement? Okay,
Yes.
all right, thank you.
I'm gonna ask you to help me with math. I think your report says the tree has a 16-inch diameter.
Correct.
I think the ordinance talks about circumference. How close is this to?
Half an inch.
We're a half an inch off. If this tree was half an inch less in diameter. it would-
Yeah, I believe the actual number is 15.4 inches. But yeah, it's within a half an inch at 16 inches.
Thank you. Okay. Get into the commission. Okay, we'll now take public comments. Do we have anybody to address the commission?
We do, we have two people, we have Bruce.
Hello again. Bruce England, Wisman Station Drive, member of Green Spaces Mountain View. As I said during the last agenda item for the heritage tree removal appeal, members of the community care deeply about maintaining our overall community canopy, and that includes both private and public properties. So something that was raised here was the condition of the tree around the trunk and the watering conditions and so on, and services that could be provided through the city from the arborist, which raises questions about the city supporting private property owners in their efforts to preserve the trees. And normally the city's stance is you're on your own because it's your property. In this case, we're talking about a partnership between the property owner and the city on behalf of the community. And I strongly support this idea. And so even though at the city council meeting last night where they were talking about the fee structure and they said the city needs to recoup some of their losses through these.
All right.
It's asking me, this is weird, it's asking me to unmute again. Am I on?
Yeah, you're on now.
Okay, that was strange. Okay. Yes, what I was saying is I strongly support the city's working with property owners to maintain the trees in the interest of canopy being preserved. This kind of goes against what was being discussed with the fee structure last night at the city council meeting. And I hope, again, that with the biodiversity strategy and urban forest plan, that there can be a robust discussion about how much the city will be involved with its property owners in their efforts to save trees. And I hope that there will be very strong support for that. I really like hearing from you tonight on both of these appeals that the willingness for the city to work with a property owner to help to maintain these trees. I think that's a solidly good direction. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Hugo.
Hugo, please go ahead.
Yes, hi. Good evening. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So I'm the arborist, the first arborist who prepared the arborist letter report. My name is Hugo, Angel Morales, and I recommend to the homeowner this tree that needs to be removed because the tree meets the criteria of tree removal. And I pulled all the details on the report. So the tree is in very, very poor condition, is declining, is getting close to the end of useful life. And that's why I recommend, and I feel really comfortable the tree meets the criteria of tree removal. That's the reason I wrote the letter for her. And I also recommend the tree to be replaced with either the same or different suitable specimen, such as like a 24-inch box in a different location, so not in the same spot because it's too close to the house. So more on the right side of the yard if you're facing from the street. So we submit the report. So and then it got denied by the city arborist. So I suggest the homeowner to get a second opinion from another arborist, which is we did. So we got, and he is on the same page with me. So he's also, I'm sure you have his report in front of you. So he also recommends a removal of the trees, also in a very poor health and condition. I think at this point I would highly recommend it to be removed and get, like a nice, beautiful specimen tree, and give it a good care like watering and all that, soil conditions. And also the first time I did not recommend to conduct excavation at the root flare because I was really comfortable that the tree, is declining. And I don't think, fertilizing and watering will help the tree. I think what the reason the cavity at the base or the root flare is, I think is related. I'm not sure. I think it used to be maybe a lawn, like a lawn on the front yard, and I think was getting irrigated. So that I think was water damage that caused that cavity on the root flare. So thank you to the homeowner for conducting the inspection. And it was shocking, surprising to see all the decay on the roof flare, which is that can cause a tree failure because she can stick, the you can see on the video, it goes all the way in, almost like I think more than a foot in, and again, that can cause a tree failure, and is really dangerous for the homeowner and the public. Thank you, and thank you for attending me. So.
Thank you, Mr. Morales. And any other comments?
No.
All right. We'll close public comment. Staff has an additional 2 minutes. Any further comments, Mr. Hanson?
No, again, I would just reiterate, we absolutely understand that this tree has some challenges in front of it. But we did not feel that it met the criteria at this point, and that there were some options remaining to give it one last effort to try and preserve it.
Thank you. And Ms. Humphrey, any additional thoughts from you?
Thanks. Yeah, I just that this tree barely meets the criteria for a heritage tree. I also want to note that I have used shake and feed on this tree. And I really do think that the problem is not more water. I think it's been overwatered. I think there's a sprinkler right next to the tree that has been buried in this plant that I didn't really notice. We're just kind of getting the drip system, dialed in after starting to landscape and things in the back. And so I just think that two to three experts saying that this tree needs to be removed. It's, who's liable when this tree falls? Like, when can I submit another request to remove it? And I also want to note that there's been a lot of mushrooms at the base. And, in my research online, I've noticed that that is a symptom of root rot. So we've seen stinkhorns, we've seen all kinds of fun mushrooms that pop up and didn't really realize, hey, this is, the tree's saying, I'm done. I'm ready to go to bed. So we'd love to get a beautiful tree in here. And, I really appreciate the work that the city's doing, that Canopy's doing. We love trees. So I just want to get a beautiful, healthy tree in here and, feel safe every time I walk out my front door. The whole front of the building is made of glass, as you know, and it is 12 to 14 inches, depending on where you measure, to the front arbor that is connected to the headers on this house. So there's just visual proof, there's professional proof that this tree is failing. I think that even if it had another couple years till it falls on my house, it's a reason to take it out now. That's how I feel. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So it's back to us. Permission to deliberate, make a motion and vote. So we'll start on this side. Your thoughts?
Well, first I'll say, I'm really surprised to see us treating a Victorian box as a heritage tree. It's considered a small tree suitable for planting under power lines, which, I'm really shocked that it has a 16-inch diameter. I did the math, that makes it 50-inch circumference. So it's not a half an inch, it's probably a half inch of diameter makes it.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so it's 2 inches bigger. So it's truly a heritage tree in the sense of our ordinance. That said, this doesn't look anything like any Victorian box you would expect to see. It's so open and chlorotic, and it's really suffering. So for that reason, I'm really on the fence. I do think this might meet one of the removal criteria. Looking at the photos at the base with all the insect damage, the big huge canopy right at the base, or cavity right at the base of the ground. I would like to hear other commissioners' thoughts about it. I mean, I certainly appreciate staff's recommendation to attempt watering and fertilization. You know, often when there's a irrigation leak in one place, that doesn't necessarily mean the whole tree is getting enough water. It's just getting too much in that one spot. And then, subject to fertilization, I mean, ordinarily you don't, other than like maybe a fruit tree, you really don't need to fertilize very much, but given that our charge is to preserve trees that meet this size, it may be worth a little bit more work, but this is definitely verging on the qualifying in terms of the poor health in my mind. But I'd love to hear other people's take on that as well.
Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, so my own personal preference is to watch a tree growing rather than a tree dying. So I completely sympathize with that. My experience with irrigation systems has been that even though you have it, who knows where the water's coming out all. So, if Mr. Hansen found that the ground was dry, the ground was dry. And that's all there is to that. To me, the tree might possibly qualify under the good arbor care. Forestry practices, thank you. But our charge is not to go with our personal preferences, but to listen to the ordinance. And if Mr. Hansen thinks that there is room to try some fairly simple techniques to try to bring this tree back to some kind of thriving condition, it seems appropriate to go in that direction. So I'm leaning towards citing staff on this.
Mr. Felix?
I find this one a real tough issue. When you have two arborists saying one thing and the city arborists somewhat saying, understanding what they are, because I respect every arborist's opinion, especially since I'm not an arborist. And so I find that a tough issue personally for me. I also have an issue, not an issue, just an observation. The picture that you showed, I think in the second slide, and the tree that I saw this morning don't even look alike. The canopy looks much more dead right now, to be perfectly honest. And so that's a concern for me. I mean, you can take the dead wood out, but what's left? Also at this time of the year when you expect the tree to be flourishing as opposed to being dormant. And again, I don't know my species that well to know, does this go dormant or is it evergreen or whatever, but it just doesn't look really good within the canopy itself. It looks much thinner than, as I mentioned, the picture that we started with. And so for those reasons, I'm really leaning towards going with the applicant, to be honest with you, in the fact that and no offense to you, Russell, the work you're doing, but I'm not sure it's savable.
Commissioner Mitchell?
So, I must have seen it on a bright sunny morning. It was a little different than other people. I actually thought it was fairly nice looking. And I thought, definitely it's thinned out, but the way the sun was hitting it, I mean, to me, that it wasn't unattractive. I do have, concerns about the potential weakness of the decay areas as well as the embedded bark at the 20-foot mark. I'd also noted that the tree is, I think one report called it 51 inches, another report called it 52 inches. So it's just barely above the threshold of being a heritage tree. You know, the city code says that a single removal criteria is just a minimum. They want an emphasis on preserving heritage trees. You know, so after reading the materials and spending time at the site, you know, I think that the criterion for removal do exist, and it's just whether there's compelling reasons on the other side. You know, so like others, I'm on the fence on this one. You know, a criteria for removal is somewhat met, maybe not resoundingly. We also have a city arborist stating that no advanced decay was seen in the decay pockets, nor was there evidence of bark beetles. And given the city's code instruction to place an emphasis on the intent to preserve heritage trees, I can see the case for denying the appeal. But then on the other hand, as I mentioned, I do have concerns about the potential weaknesses at the decay pocket areas, as well as the embedded bark at the 20-foot level. And again, we also have two, as Commissioner Felios mentioned, two separate arborist reports stating that the tree shows decay, beetle disease, and is in poor health and is structurally unsound. So I guess, you know, that also makes me wonder whether, you know, this tree faces a troubled future and the neighborhood might be better preserved or better served with two replacement trees in its stead. But again, I'm on the fence. I guess I want to hear from our final commissioner and see what he has to say. But I guess I could have it. I could make a case for a slight lean either way. It's a tough one.
Thank you, Commissioner Mitchell. I hate to break my streak here, but I'll tell you, I'm not on the fence. I'm of two minds here. And one is of principle and the other is perspective. And I've always, the principle is upholding the code that we have adopted here, the Heritage Tree Ordinance. The perspective is, I don't think this really meets the spirit of the ordinance. The preface to the ordinance really talks about majestic trees, large majestic trees. And this is not a particularly majestic tree. It's, in fact, as I was approaching the property, what I really noted was the surrounding trees. There are surrounding canopy. This tree doesn't provide canopy. I don't think it really fulfills what the spirit of the Heritage Tree Ordinance is. I do think it's the arboriculture is debatable, and as Commissioner Filio said, he didn't want to offend you, but I don't mind offending you. But yeah, I would, you know, if my fellow commissioners came to the same conclusion, I would say I would grant the appeal on this one, because it just barely qualifies technically as a heritage tree. And I don't really think it qualifies in the spirit of the ordinance of what we're trying to protect. And if the homeowner says big, beautiful new tree versus this, I'd say I'm for a big, beautiful. So that's kind of where I sit on it, which is really unusual for me. I tend to go with the ordinance all the way, most of the time. So I will, I'm willing to defer to staff and my fellow commissioners if the weight is to uphold the appeal, but my sense is this really isn't a tree to preserve.
So upholding the appeal, I'm not sure you mean,
I would support the appeal and
Approve the appeal.
okay, approve the appeal and,
which would be, allowing them to remove it.
correct.
Okay, I just wanted to get clear with what you were actually,
Thank you for your clarity.
okay.
I'm sorry, I'm confused, but yeah, no, I kind of sided with the appellant on this. I side with staff too. I mean, I think staff is doing exactly what they're supposed to do and reading it by the letter of the law, and I think they're doing the right thing, and I think the homeowner's doing the right thing, and I think it's kind of a judgment call on our part. And in this instance, unlike most, I think there's better options than saving that. If the option is putting in a new, healthy, beautiful tree.
I would move to grant the appeal.
I'll second it.
You would also agree, we're not making motions yet. Okay. I'll get on the same page, but hearing so you'd support a appeal, the appellant? Yeah. You'd support the appellant.
So would I.
Yeah, so my problem is we have an ordinance. We none of us think it's a great tree at this point. But I'm not sure I feel comfortable about making a decision based on a decision based on my personal response to the tree. So we have problems with the heritage tree ordinance. We have a problem with what is considered a heritage tree. Those are all hopefully issues we're going to be discussing in the near future. Staff is going by the letter of the law, which is completely what they're supposed to be doing. So thank you for doing that. For us to say, well, this tree is really not particularly attractive at this point, so let's replace it, seems to be going against the spirit of the ordinance. There is the point that in that location, I doubt a big tree is going to be planted because pepper tree is enormous. Why would you want to plant a tree there? So the canopy in that area is going to have changed because the tree, when planted, or the trees when planted, will be in a different place. And in both the cases that came before us today, there are no planting strips. And that's why these are not city trees, because there are no planting strips. So it's really on the individual homeowners whether there's any canopy or not, which is a problem. In the homeowner's situation, I would want the tree gone. I'm not comfortable with or not following, in this case, the letter of the law. So I'm not happy with the option of saying, let's take off.
You want to speak to this first?
Well, I guess, I don't quite see it that way. I'm not having a subjective reaction to this tree. I actually do think it qualifies under 2 of the criteria for removal, 1 and 3. And it's a senescing older tree, so it's reached the end of its life. Its aesthetic qualities, aesthetic qualities, you can be very rigorous and objective about, even though aesthetics is a subjective topic. We can still look at, the density of the foliage, the structure of the branches, compare it to what the tree ordinarily would look like. I have a photograph here of a specimen that's from Canopy's website that's probably equally tall, and it is so different than this tree. It is not aesthetically what that species should look like. It's unhealthy. And that brings us to number 1, which, disease, general health. The tree is extremely unhealthy, and it does have, maybe that's a normal amount of insect, because plants and insects are in a constant battle, but, I think that it is actually time to replace it and that we do have a basis in our ordinance to do so.
And I want to say, Commissioner Bryant, I respect you even more than I already did. And 90% of the time, I'm completely where you're at. And really going by the ordinance, not our subjective opinions is the way to go. But I think Commissioner Summer really articulated well that this probably, so my recommendation is we make a motion to accept the appellant and you vote against.
That's probably what's going to happen.
And I mean, I was the one person who actually thought it looked decent. I mean, I actually saw some beauty in the canopy, but I think that there are at least a couple of the criteria. I don't feel like I'm going against the city code. I think the condition of the tree with respect to the age of the tree relative to the lifespan of that disease, infestation, general health, and then even our city arborist has mentioned that the good forestry practices was sort of in play on this as well. So separate from thinking maybe it doesn't meet the spirit of a heritage, for me, I think that there's enough basis in the city code and also looking at, all aspects.
So if you like to persuade us otherwise, or are you comfortable being a
I'm split right in the middle. I'm going to go with the no, but I completely understand where you all are coming from.
You want to convince us otherwise, or should we just go ahead and?
No, go ahead.
All right.
Where's our template for a motion?
All right, so we have an emotion, a template for a motion. So if someone would make the motion. Maybe Allison, can you scroll so we can see the top of it?
There you go.
In my opinion, it meets 1, 3, and 4. 2, I don't think we've heard anything about improvement construction.
No.
Take that out.
Basically, what I was trying to do earlier is exactly that with the numbers 1 and 3. Or did you change to number 2 now?
It renumbered, yeah.
Yeah, it would be 4 if we were to
It'd be
have.
1, 3, and 4 that are.
1, 3, and 4, yeah.
Yeah.
1, 2.
I guess I feel like it meets number 2 as well because of its sort of.
Allison, would you please put up in the top, MVCC 32.35, can you please put sub A up there?
Right.
Well, and also that number, what's currently listed as number 3, does provide a little bit of subjectivity. So.
Yeah, I mean, aesthetic qualities, I think you can
Majestic stature.
address that objectively as well. It's not just a thing like, oh, I don't think it's beautiful. It's not what I'm saying.
And I don't think taking it out has any negative visual impact on the neighborhood. So what, leave 1, 3, and 4 in, and once we knock out 2, it'll be 1, 2, and 3.
It would be 1, 3, and 4. That's the numbering out of 3245A.
I think someone needs to make a motion.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
We're told not to make motions.
Yeah,
So I guess the question is there anything else we would want to add to this to make a motion?
I think it's time for someone to step up and make a motion.
Okay, I'll move what we're showing on the screen. Do I need to read it, Dave?
No.
I would say yes, so everybody knows what the motion is. Can we take out the 2 there and just keep the 3 and the 4?
It's automatically.
Can we hand number it?
Yeah, take
Because
out
those
the
are-
automatic
Put
numbering.
an A, something.
how do I do this? Sorry.
Just turn off where, reformat it so it's.
Color
not-
it white.
Color your text white.
Their name not out.
Be creative.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Okay, shall I start reading?
Yes.
Okay, I move that we approve the appeal and overturn staff's recommendation for one heritage tree at 2424 Whitney Drive. Because one or the following criteria under MVCC 3235A have been met. Have. Specifically, item 1, the condition of the tree with respect to age of the tree relative to the lifespan of the particular species, disease, infestation, general health, damage, public nuisance, danger of falling, proximity to existing or proposed structures, and interference with utility services. Number 3, the nature and qualities of the tree as a heritage tree, including its maturity, its aesthetic qualities such as canopy, its shape and structure, its majestic stature, and its visual impact on the neighborhood. And finally, item 4, good forestry practices such as, but not limited to, the number of healthy trees a given parcel of land will support, and the planned removal of any tree nearing the end of its life cycle. And there are that many ands in there.
Could probably
So,
just-
where did I stop? And the replacement of young trees to enhance the overall health of the urban forest.
Is there a second?
Second.
So if I may just interject, I'm not trying to convince you guys, but number 3 was actually written to protect trees, not to say this doesn't rise to the level of a beautiful tree. So it's kind of taking what was put in to protect and turning it around to take away the protection.
Well, except that A, the whole subsection A is the criteria for removal. And so in a way, it's a negative, it does not meet the stuff it says right there.
There's a certain irony in using it in this way.
Oh, it's, don't get
There
me
we go.
wrong, I have to say, many problems with the way this is written, but yeah, this is the criteria for removal, and since what we're doing, what this motion proposes is that we would approve the appeal, which will result in trees removal, we need to use the criteria for removal, I think.
Right, yeah,
Not-
just like you said, you found it in the negative.
Yes.
It is.
I mean,
In the-
maybe
it is
we
in the
need
removal
some,
criteria, so-
it says have been met.
Did we have a second on that?
We did have a second. and
Commissioner.
Appreciate the comment. Go to a vote.
Okay, we have Commissioner Bryant.
Yeah.
Commissioner Felios.
Yes.
Commissioner Summer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Mitchner,
Yes.
and Chair Davis.
Yes.
Thank you for keeping us all on our toes.
Once again, appreciate the help from our legal staff.
Did very well on that.
Okay. Thank you very much, folks and somebody. We are going to move on in our agenda to item 6.3. The budget and capital improvements program update.
Grab it out of your figure. Thank you, everybody.
So this week. Yes, it's really majestic.
Maybe we could take just a brief pause.
3 minute break?
That'd be great, yeah.
Okay, so for those folks online, we're gonna take a 3 minute break while we get organized for the remainder of the meeting.
I'll say 6:15, I mean, 9:10.
9:10?
Yeah, what do you say? Watch it start.
I'll gavel us back to order. And we'll turn it over to Lindsay Walton.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Lindsay Wong. I'm the Senior Management Analyst for the Community Services Department. And tonight I'm here to present an update on the fiscal year 2025 through 2026 budget and capital improvement program. For some background, last night, the fiscal year 25-26 recommended budget was brought to council for a public hearing. And on June 24th, both the fiscal year 25-26 operating budget and the capital improvement projects will be brought to City Council for adoption. Tonight's update is to inform you of which CSD projects and items have been included in the recommended budget. Some additional context that was presented last night to council is that the recommended fiscal year 25-26 budget that's being brought forward is structurally balanced and continues the recent trend of a slightly positive yet slowing economic outlook. While the budget is stable in fiscal year 2025-26, there's still some economic uncertainty on the horizon, especially when it comes to city revenues. So with that context in mind, there's only a small number of ongoing budget adjustments for next fiscal year throughout the city. This slide includes the ongoing changes that are being recommended for the Community Services Department. First is a city utility cost increase. This is an increase applied to all departments and accounts for utility usage, utility rate adjustments, and higher gas and electricity costs. Next is a janitorial rate increase due to annual contract cost escalation, plus services at one new restroom in Ringstorf Park, where the new maintenance building is being built, as well as new restrooms at multiple school sites. And the last ongoing request is the addition of a parks maintenance worker to support Ringstorf Park. Given the new amenities and features that have been added to the park over the last couple of years, including the Magical Bridge Playground and the newly renovated Ringstorf Park Aquatic Center, the addition of the new staff is needed to ensure that maintenance levels can keep up with the increased usage of the park. Next are items that are being included as one-time adjustments, or what the city calls limited period adjustments, meaning that these are only added for fiscal year 25-26 and are not ongoing expenditures. Most of these are currently funded this current fiscal year as limited period items that we are recommending to continue again next year. So first is a full-time senior stagehand position at the Mountain View Center for the Performing Arts. Next is the Urban Forest Outreach and Education contract. This is our contract with Canopy. Next is the day porter service at the Senior Center, which provides full-time janitorial services. Next is the Pride event. The inaugural Pride event just happened last week. Hopefully you all were able to attend. It was a great event. We had a lot of support from the community, which was awesome. So we're recommending that again next year. Next is the career and college programs at the Teen Center, and then Magical Bridge programming at the Playgrounds community stage. This includes live music performances, storytelling, and other programming. And then out of the Shoreline Regional Park Community Fund, we have the Biological Services contract at Shoreline Park. So this is to continue contracts with ecological services consultants who are monitoring and supporting the preservation of the burrowing owls at Shoreline. Next is a waste bin replacement. This replaces all the trash cans throughout Shoreline Park, along the Stevens Creek Trail, and at Charleston Park in the North Bay Shore area. This is to replace the existing deteriorating trash cans with a standardized animal-proof model. And then last is a contract with the nonprofit San Jose Conservation Corps to help address homeless encampments in areas of overgrowth along the Stevens Creek Trail. Next are capital outlay requests that are being recommended. Capital outlay expenditures are basically pieces of equipment with an estimated useful life of 2 years or more and a unit cost of at least $5,000. So first is a field grooming machine. This is a multi-purpose machine that will maintain our 14 ball fields and 46 parks more efficiently. It can perform detailed work on fields and has interchangeable attachments that make it more efficient. Next is an electric vehicle for downtown maintenance. This is to support the maintenance of Castro Street Pedestrian Mall, Pioneer Park, areas outside of City Hall,
the library and the Center for Performing Arts. And it allows staff to maneuver safely downtown to perform that maintenance. Next is exercise equipment at the senior center. This is specifically for 5 recumbent bikes to replace the current bikes, which are quite old and they see a lot of usage every day. Next is the mower at Shoreline Park. This is a remote controlled electric slope mower. This is more efficient and it can navigate the burrowing owl and wildlife habitat without the disturbances of larger and louder equipment. And then the last is a tractor attachment. This is a front loader attachment for an existing tractor at Shoreline. Allows staff to more efficiently dig, grade, and carry heavy items. And it is considered more safe than the repetitive motion and heavy lifting that would otherwise be required when projects require moving or hauling materials. Next, I'm going to talk about the capital improvement program. So this is a list of capital improvement projects that council will be committing parkland funds to at the end of June. This slide shows the project, the planning area that the project serves, the priority of the project, which is based on council policy K15. Priority 1 would be the acquisition of parkland, 2 is the development of new parks and rec amenities, and 3 is the rehabilitation of existing amenities. And then the final column shows the requested parkland development fund dollar amount. One note is that this slide only shows parkland fund commitments, and some of these projects may be partially funded by other funds as well. So first are some existing projects that we are amending and adding funds to. First is the shoreline play structure replacement. This project just requires more funds due to construction cost increases. Second is the Wisman Sports Center and Mountain View Sports Pavilion renovations. This project requires more funds to replace the roof on Wisman Sports Center. Third is a planned and emergency facilities project CIP. So this includes multiple sub-projects, but this amount specifically is to add funds for teen center repairs. Next is the solar arrays at the Senior Center, Mountain View Sports Pavilion, and Wisman Sports Center. This is to add funds for the construction phase of the project. And then next is the Mauna Loma Playground renovations project. This is also to add funds for the construction phase of the project, which is for renovations to the public playground at Mauna Loma Elementary. And then the next section are new projects for fiscal year 25-26. So first is a project for Sylvan Park improvements. This is for general improvements to the park, which may include replacement of the playground, which is over 20 years old, replacement of picnic tables, upgrades to lighting throughout the park, and other landscape improvements. Next is the Cuesta Tennis Center improvements project. This is for a full rehabilitation of the Cuesta Tennis Center Pro Shop to enhance ADA compliant access and renovate all facets of the facility, including the restrooms, the clubhouse, and office area. This facility has significant maintenance issues and aging infrastructure currently. Next is Cuesta Park improvements. This is also for general improvements, which may include new design elements, pathway renovations, potential replacement of the playground, which is also quite old, and potential upgrades to lighting throughout the park or landscape improvements. And then next is the Thompson Mini Park. So this project will design and construct a new 0.43 acre mini park in the Thompson planning area. So the council action on June 24th is just to commit the funds to these projects, and then the actual work to get started on these projects will depend on the timing of available staff resources as we continue to collaborate with Public Works on getting these projects started. So one more note that I don't have a slide for that I just want to point out is that last night council also convened a public hearing on the proposed modifications to the city's master fee schedule. So staff have been working with the Finance and Administrative Services Department and their consultant to review all the user fees and the true cost to the city of providing services. The proposed fees were brought to the Council Finance Committee on May 8th. And then based on their feedback, adjustments were made and then brought to council last night, where council moved to adopt a resolution to amend the master fee schedule with the proposed modifications, which can be seen in the attachment to last night's memo, with one adjustment made to the heritage tree appeal fee for which they landed at $325. So that is my budget update. That concludes the presentation, and I'm happy to accept any questions.
I'll start.
I'm not sure. I have
Okay.
immediate questions, right? I mean, it was a lot to digest. I mean, again, I think this happened last year maybe, but feels like I don't know, I don't feel like I was in the loop completely on this. I mean, some of these things I sort of knew about, some of them, well, maybe, I don't know, I just, anyway, a lot to digest. It would be really nice if you could at least later send out that report. But yeah, I don't, some of those things are parkland things that I would, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're out of sync on the budget with the council and whether, I mean, that was an issue last year. I don't,
So I think council is now at a new cadence based on the last 2 years, and we'll be able to build in the timing moving forward so that we're early in that process.
so next year we could get that, so that's all the, the one-time stuff and all that, but and that's more departmental. I mean, I'm not gonna quibble on that. But on the, all the park developments and things like that, it would have been nice to have known and gotten the, the spreadsheet with how many funds are available in each of the different planning areas and how these projects play into that. So anyway, that's just a general comment. And then I guess I probably had other questions, but just the one is, so the 280,000 for the teen center, what's happening on that?
Yeah, that is right in the middle, back one, back, back. Are you not
Yeah,
talking about-
24,
I think you're
13.
talking about this one, right? The planned emergency facilities project, the teen center. So this is for drainage repairs at the teen center.
Okay.
I don't have too many
Yeah,
details.
so we have had over the last 3 years during heavy rainfall, it has created significant impacts to the point where it's beyond what would be considered regular maintenance from our facility staff. It is now considered more of a renovation, therefore looking to use some parkland funds. An entire wall has been removed. They have not, it has been a false wall for 3 years. We finally figured out what the issue is. We're putting funding to it so that we can complete that renovation.
Okay. Yeah, and so I'm not gonna ask any other questions really, but if you could please forward the this so I can have it for my files and sort of digest it later. Anyway, thanks.
The solar array with regards to the Mountain View Sports Pavilion and the Wisman, is the district, I mean, that's a co-sponsored buildings. They belong to both of us, from what I understand, from what I remember they were built. So is the district sharing some of that cost as well?
Yes, they are.
Oh, thank you. All right. Also, were there any things that staff proposed or have been talked about before that were eliminated from this list?
So as we go through the process with, as far as our operating budget, when we brought it forward to the city manager and ultimately city council for a first review, nothing was removed, no.
Thank you.
Yes, so an item like the pickleball, the ongoing study, the possible construction, all that doesn't show up.
Correct. You know that the time-
So the current feasibility study is funded, so you're not seeing it as a budget adjustment. And we will be facilitating community meetings, I believe, for the end of summer to start bringing forward some additional information. We will be updating our website probably in the next 2 weeks with a large amount of information that we have put toward that project, so that the community can see all of the locations that we have looked at and deemed to be either infeasible or still looking at to be feasible. And then we'll continue that process.
But it's, my concern is more about the CIP fund, it's not, is there money in the CIP fund for that at this point?
For the actual construction, I don't believe so. And that will determine where fees come from will be determined by where it finally is located within the city, where we can pull some funds and what funds are available.
And remind me, we have the CIP items here. And we heard at the beginning of today's meeting that basically the budget for planting trees has had to be reduced. So are those different buckets, or how does that work?
So the funding source for the canopy agreement has changed over the years. And so when we first started working with Canopy, we were actually utilizing our capital improvement funds out of the forestry budget. Typically, once we got through a couple of years with Canopy, we realized that this is an organization we want to continue with. And this would be considered more of an operational budget. And so we put it into our operating budget. Therefore, it's going through this process, and the amount of funds for general operating funds at the moment for ongoing, they're trying to limit the amount of ongoing costs. That's why it's still considered limited period. And so because it's limited period for now, we were asked to reduce by a certain amount. And as Russell mentioned earlier, we may have an opportunity to supplement as we go through the year with possibly some of those mitigation fees that we have to increase some of the tree plantings over the year.
So the urban forest outreach and education contract, that's Canopy.
That is Canopy, yes.
And how much was it last year? It's 100,000 here.
125. It started when I started 4 years ago. It started at 83, and it was my understanding it was actually a grant. That's how it started with sustainability.
I think that's sustainability
Okay.
money.
Yeah, it was sustainability money, and so when I got here, asked to increase it. So we've been inching our way up. But again, they put us in this limited period category, and just with some of the economic, crunch right now, they reduced it back down to 100. So we had 1 year at 125. Hopefully we can get back up there, but we're happy to have this because it did start at 83 when I started.
Thank you.
I've just had the same question that Commissioner Bryant did about the Cuesta Park items and the absence of pickleball, but it sounds like we're not ready. The only thing that I would say is I hope we're going to be, thinking about the pickleball as these other items get planned and the construction drawings get done, because you don't want to have to, do an improvement and then a year later go back in and change it all, dig it up. And
Before any of these proposed projects start, we anticipate having a plan moving forward with pickleball somewhere before any of these actually start.
okay, that's good. Yeah, we need that information in order to make some final decisions about the other improvements at Cuesta Park. It didn't end up being where it was the last time we saw it. That was my only question. We can talk about the point that Commissioner Mitchner brought up in terms of timing in relation to the work program.
So yes, the council last year made a change to the way that the timing. They made a slight change this year. Seems to be based on feedback last night. They like that process. We'll be able to build in an earlier touch point with PRC in the future.
That's
Does the budgeting for biological services contract, is that a temporary, are you still looking for a permanent staff position there? Or do you anticipate it being a contract service?
So at the moment, we are in a position to continue with the contract services for a period of time. Once we have resolution, then we'll make we have some options ahead, but for now, the funding we needed to make available for this year, and then,
May or may not exist. And then, so there's no further funding requirement beyond what's already been confirmed for biodiversity plan and park strategic plan.
correct.
Is that right?
It looked like Roni had another follow-up question.
Yes, it just occurred to me, the biological services contract, thank you for asking that question. That's a lot of money, and we still have a biologist who we're paying. So we have a position that's not active right now, but it's still being paid. So these $280,000 are basically a big chunk of money that we're kind of double paying. And it's coming at the cost of other things that we might have been able to do.
And depending on how long that position stays vacant, we may not need all those funds. We'll see.
Okay, we'll
Now, I just have another.
We'll make comments after we get public. So this
Yeah,
is
no, I have a question. Okay.
Question.
So on the Thompson Park, is that 2 parcels at this point, or?
Yeah, so there's the original one off of Thompson.
Right.
And then probably a year or two after that purchase, we purchased one just behind it that faces Middlefield Road.
Right.
And so that will create a connector from that inner neighborhood out to Middlefield. And yes, we are looking to design both of those at the same time.
God, I'm trying to remember, was there a point where we thought there might be a third one even?
We continue to have conversations.
Closed session. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions at this point? Then we'll go to public comment. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment?
There is, we have Bruce.
Mr. England.
Kyle. Bruce England again, Wisman Station Drive, member of Green Spaces Mountain View. Yeah, I think I stand corrected on what I said earlier about the fee change for heritage tree removal appeals. I said $350. Staff says $325. I'm sure they're right. So I will make sure I keep that in mind. And then the other thing that I brought up earlier is the Public Works talking about the active transportation plan and that they're looking to community services to set criteria for tree, and not only criteria, but handle the part of the projects to put in trees and landscaping in areas that Public Works has set aside in public spaces for those kind of plantings. They're not going to do it themselves. I realize that's not probably going to fall within the capital improvement program, but maybe it will eventually after the ATP is completed. I'm not sure how you're going to handle it, but I just wanted to mention that again. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
No.
And we can have any further commission comments?
Sure. So in addition to, if you could, when you send out this report, if there's an updated spreadsheet that has all the available, all the available funds by planning area and the projects that are slated to go against, so that would be great to get that updated. And then, this will carry over to our next agenda item, but I would really love to have that budget and CIP review and input on the work plan. So that it's there for everybody to see, and we don't, I think it's more firm that way. But I'll bring that up when we talk about the work plan.
Other comments? Hearing none, I'll close this item. Thank you. And now we'll turn to item 6.4, the fiscal year 25-26 Parks and Recreation Commission and Urban Forestry Board work plan.
All right, thank you, commissioners. And as outlined in the staff report, we have attachment 1, which is the proposed PRC work plan that will be sent to city council in September for review and approval. This is an opportunity for you to review. City staff has put in some of the milestones for the upcoming fiscal year for you to review. I do want to highlight the parkland dedication and lieu fees and nexus study review in November. That is scheduled for November. The timing of that is a bit in flux, but we think we are in a good place. It'll be close to November. And this is an opportunity for us to not only look at our existing parkland fees, but then looking at a nexus study to truly bring in some opportunities to look at possibly some new fees and to look at fees a little differently for the future of parklands and how we collect fees for different types of developments. And the Montaloma playground improvements, that was on the CIP, which was discussed. And then within that, we have the scheduled biodiversity touch points, the Parks and Rec strategic plan, among others. So with that, I will turn it over back to the chair and be open to questions.
Thank you. Questions? Start at this time, yes.
So based on what we just discussed with the prior item, I see that this work plan has the review and provide input on annual work plan on June 10th, 2026, but you were expressing that maybe you thought we would be able to start before June. Should that be moved in the work plan then?
So the June is actually what we're doing tonight.
Yeah.
Not compared to the budget. So I
So,
believe what you're asking for is the budget context or,
well, I think that, if I understood you correctly, some of those PLD fund uses,
Uh-huh.
you were, I thought you were saying you would bring it to us before this time next year.
so, sorry, so we do have, in January, we have the Parks Projects and Parkland Fund mid-year update in January.
But that would be where we stand in
At that
the
point in
current
time.
fiscal year, we're talking about the subsequent fiscal year. Would that also occur at that same time? I assume you're doing that through the budget planning process rather than the, kind of status.
What would you suggest as a appropriate?
The item to talk about parkland fund commitments.
No, are you talking about parkland commitments or just the budget and parkland commitments for the following year?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's like
The
maybe
budget
April
process.
or looks like we don't have any real April work.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if in the past, the budget was separate from the parkland commitments. And the parkland commitments were in May, but. I thought for this coming month plan that parkland would be wanted with the nexus study.
Yes, it is. So. Yes, so what you're saying, Lindsay, is the Parks Projects, Parkland Fund, that is actual, are we
In January.
suggesting commitments at that point?
January?
Yes.
No,
Okay.
that's just an update.
So we did in
park
May
projects.
possibly
Yes.
previously, okay.
Yeah.
So we can add the item for budget and parkland. We'll put that down for May.
Okay. Yeah.
And it may come earlier than that, but let's put it for May for now, and if it comes earlier, then
Yeah, it looks like there's a space there between March and June that's available. And so another question I had, I didn't see anything about the pickleball feasibility in next year's work
at this point, that's gonna go through city council
plan. Okay.
to
All right,
continue that
so we
process.
kind of did our part and then
Yes.
they're, okay. All right,
And unless they defer back to you.
okay.
Yes.
And then my final question, so I do see the Park and Rec strategic plan, December 10th. I'm trying to understand how that synchronizes with what council has asked for, but it's still really vague.
So the Parks and Rec strategic plan will go to the city council October 14th. And then based on feedback, we will bring you information to review. You can review the entire plan, provide feedback. And then it will be going back to the city council for further review. And
So. Okay, that basically is the only time we're ever going to see it.
to stay on the current schedule, yes, and we'll see how the process goes. And it will also depend on the feedback that we receive from city council and whether that feedback requires multiple meetings. And so we'll have to see how that process
sure.
plays out.
Okay, thank you, that's the question.
Yes, so actually, I had a similar question about the strategic plan coming to us in December, which is not usually completely the time for important meetings, but it is what it is. But
It will be public way before that, and so you'll be able to read it and digest it prior to that.
Well, I'm just, council is gonna have a study session. And I'm not clear what the expectations of the PRC meeting. What is it just going to be, here is the plan and make comments if you'd like?
I think we will get some direction from city council, and whether that is confirming some of the high level policy questions. That might be, we may ask a question about, do they agree with the way that we're proposing to calculate the parkland calculations for school sites? Do they agree with that? So it's more policy, and then they can make a request to PRC to look at certain areas specifically, but that is not necessarily to put you in a box, but to provide some framework from what's important from them.
So the way staff calculates the acreage and all, we had a good explanation of that. It's clear how much work and thought staff put into it. The idea of when is the discussion going to be happening about what kind of parks we want, what the balance between passive and active is, whether we use plastic fields or not? Is the expectation that council will determine that in their study session? I mean, that's not usually what a study session does.
And I'll be to set a stage a little bit. The Parks and Rec strategic plan will not go into some of those specific details. Do we have synthetic turf fields moving forward? There might be a recommendation for the city to review or create a policy related to that. So that would become a work item for the PRC to work on. So there will not be, as I don't think, as many direct recommendations that will have policy implications. The direction will be, here are areas that should be updated within the city. And then for us to create a work plan to identify what those are, put them on a plan, and then we're bringing some of those items individually to you and to city council to look at instead of trying to do it as a full plan. But they're identifying what those items are based on their research of our city so that we can create a work plan from there.
It's a strategic plan, not a plan.
So in that sense, it's very different from our Parks and Open Space plan, which had a very detailed analysis of the city, what we had, where we needed to go.
There is some of that. So within that, we've talked previously about the park by park review, looking at each of what parks we have And then also looking at the areas that we are deficient and the types of parks that we should be looking at in those areas. The types of parks, yes, whether it's community park, neighborhood park, mini park, those are being discussed. And so I think I just want to make sure that it is a strategic plan, which is giving a framework, and then we're able to actually dive into more of the details as we move forward.
So basically, this will be high level inventory of what we have and how we compare it to other places. And then there's work, years of work.
Yes.
All right, that's helpful. And then I had, excuse me for a moment. Here. So there was one item that I hoped might come before the PRC, which is something that I talked about in the past. It would be great for us to have an opportunity to look at parks that we help design and kind of have a conversation about how that worked for the community, how that matched where we thought we were going, and what are some lessons learned. So it would be like a once a year maybe, but like a review of the year. I would really, I think that would be a useful phase for us.
That could be some of the feedback that you provide for the Parks and Rec strategic plan as a measurement. Are we hitting the mark? Are we doing things the right way? Is the community receiving, you know, how we're designing and constructing parks? So that's a great measurement tool that we could put in to the Parks and Rec strategic plan. So that, save that, hang on to that for when PRC provides their feedback, because we could certainly incorporate that.
The lingo would be a post-occupancy evaluation.
Thank you, but
That's
that
what
is
that's
something
called.
that would have to be part of the strategic plan.
I'm saying it could be, it absolutely could be. I think that's a great measurement tool that we could use, that bringing back, like going back into the community on some of the new parks that were built and finding, do they find it useful? Do they find the design and the construction, is it meeting their needs? And then reporting back to PRC once a year. It's hard to find measurements sometimes for some of these, and so, you know, that's, you brought that up and I'm like, oh, that's kind of be a good measurement tool.
As an ongoing item, that could be part of that process. And thank you, I didn't think about that. More specifically, I'm trying to, and I understand the overall question. What type of outcomes from that are you looking for, just so that I can understand? And what would be useful as far as a dialogue? And then what is it that PRC would be giving back, just so I have a better idea of how to.
Sure, so let me
context around it.
first say that really interesting idea, Brenda, and really worth exploring some more. But I see the dollar signs going everywhere in terms of going out and measuring. That sounds like a budgetary item to think of. I would love to pursue that. I was thinking of something as part of the PRC work plan. For example, the Fayette Park. And also actually Mora, which was not, I was not part of the PRC, but that was being discussed. The balance between the planted environment and the games, the structures, is something that I think the PRC should be thinking about. In both those parks.
So the lingo for that would be the hardscape and softscape.
Thank you. I'll just talk and you can.
I'll speak park for you, okay.
Absolutely. it's a balance that is interesting. For example, again, going to Fayette Park. We talked about the both, and at this point, it's recycled plastic and cement, which was not my idea for Bosque when we were talking about it. I was looking for something softer and leafier. So it seems worthwhile for the PRC to talk about it. And as a learning experience for staff also, these are issues we should be thinking about. Maybe.
Renee, what if we, I mean, I'm loving your, I mean, what if we made it a standard practice for PRC that on the 1 year or the 2 year anniversary of a park opening, that we do a review of the park? I mean, that shouldn't add too many to the schedule. We only open 1 or 2 a year.
I was thinking of a survey. I wasn't thinking budgetary. I was thinking like that we could, as a as a department, do some kind of a survey, like to the community, we built these 2 parks and then bring that feedback.
Yeah, I would include.
So
But you
not
also-
budgetary.
I don't mean to interrupt, but you also have to go out and observe what's happening.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, are the children all running up and over this thing and it's now completely denuded of all vegetation, you know? Right, like you have to go out and observe.
But we
So-
could also, it could be a recommendation where we task PRC members, each of you go
could
out for an
also
hour,
have, you
different
know,
times.
teen
I mean, there's
interns do
there's
it,
a lot
you
of
know?
creative ways to do
Right,
this.
similar to tennis court usage where
Absolutely.
you're counting numbers of people at
Staff
different
could do
times of the
it,
day.
PRC members, we all bring that and a survey, so nothing that's like hitting the budget, like I wasn't thinking that at all, just could we all, pitch in and come up with some monitoring and measuring?
It sounds more and more interesting every minute. I would like to have the idea standardized, and then we can see what resources we should get together. But maybe the idea of just once a year, we look at the parks that we opened 1 or 2 years back.
Sure.
And see what's available in terms of resources at the time.
So, yeah,
It might be, so the January park update is an update on the parkland fund, but it's also intended to be an update on, like you said, park achievements and park projects. I don't know if that might be a time that we could also include a review of parks that were opened a year ago or something like that. I like that. Just because we already have that on there, right? Just an idea.
no, I know, I'm trying to think, looking at what we already have in January, whether we have the capacity in that meeting to have a good discussion. That's what I'm trying to look at. I was actually, and I appreciate that and I agree with you, that makes sense. But going back to looking at our schedule, we don't have anything scheduled currently for April. I was gonna throw that out as a opportunity. Because we have a number of things in January, including the parks, real estate update. Right now, the Montalona playground is anticipated to come then.
I mean, the task is almost to develop the process.
Right. I think first, put that into a meeting, with 30 or 40 minutes for development of a review process. Is it a survey? Does it involve the public? What's our role? What's too much work for staff? What's the sweet spot for feedback?
So
I
the
think-
first year would be develop the process, develop that, what that measurement and monitoring looks like, and then going
You might
forward.
do it with a case study because it helps to be looking at something that, you don't, as to the point of they want to be standardized, I think that is.
I think to allow us time to come up with a recommended framework and then also to give us time to, if we wanna go out and do some surveying and come back to you. I'm gonna suggest April as a time to come back and do that, if the PRC wants to make that part of your motion.
To me, that sounds good. And I would, as Sandy said, I would, instead of it being completely theoretical, I think it'd be easier if we actually did it as she called it a case study. I mean, we actually take a park. Let's pick one that was opened 2 years ago and let's do it. Do you have other questions?
No, I just like to, I think that's great, and maybe for the first time, it doesn't need to be a huge amount of staff work. A case study would be great, you know, let us know ahead of time what park you'd like to choose, and we can all maybe go and have a look and kind of cast our mind back and maybe talk to the neighbors, or let the neighbors know we're going to be talking about it. And let's just start, and then we can refine it endlessly. That would be great.
And we can even, as part of that process, as that agenda item, bring back some of those old staff reports of what it is that we were recommending at that time, just as a refresher, and then look at compare the two, where we were and where are we, and did we meet some of those items. So thank you.
So what are my questions? So these are just questions. So I actually pulled up last year's work plan, and checked out most of these things. There's a couple I had questions about. There was a November 13th thing called the Park Design Process Review.
That's what I think that's what Ronit had asked for that didn't get accomplished.
Okay, so
Believe
that's
so.
Pretty similar.
okay. Okay, and then there was a North Cove landscape design. Did we do that?
That one's coming back.
Oh, is that the same as what's now Shoreline? The
Sailing Lake Bird Island improvements.
okay.
So originally, that Cove project was gonna be part of the Sailing Lake and Bird Island improvements. We have since separated those two. So that'll come back, the actual Cove will come back later, but we're moving forward with the Sailing Lake and Bird Island improvements and options thereof for your review.
That's great. I feel good about looking at last year's and being able to
Wow,
know the
yeah.
status of,
Yeah.
okay, we did or didn't do this, or we moved this far. Now I have a couple questions about this year. So there's 2 meetings that have biodiversity plan. I think a lot of that is the values and principles behind biodiversity, but there's also, I believe, a very specific task of developing a new tree master plan. Will that be detailed in one of these meetings?
So the plan, do you want to speak to it? Sorry.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, so the biodiversity, it is now called the Biodiversity and Urban Forest Plan. They are all together. And so what you'll see is there's more biodiversity at the front end of the report, leads into more of the urban forest report. And so it's all within one. So you'll see kind of the both sides together.
There will be a new tree list.
We just basically, the community tree master plan, we took a lot of the goals and the information and we're incorporating it into, so the biodiversity and urban forest plan is replacing the community tree master plan.
So we're not changing the tree list,
We are updating the tree list.
Okay,
It's the urban forest component in there is very robust.
look forward to that.
Yeah.
Another question is, discussion we had, or the topic came up about policies around volunteer groups, neighborhood groups, and their role in the parks process, and how volunteers can augment staff capabilities, things like that. Is there any of that discussion?
So this may come to you before it goes to city council. This is on the council work plan. And our department, CSD, originally it was gonna come out of the city manager's office. It has since been switched to us as the lead department to work on that. We've already done a lot of work in the background in relation to that. So I don't have a timeline, but I do anticipate outcomes and updates, if not actually an agendized item for you. Yeah. But yes, that is a work plan item for our department.
All my questions. So we'll see if there's any public questions.
We didn't get our shot.
Oh, I thought you did.
I was following up on Ronit.
You can pass me.
Steve would be
You
first.
pass, no, you can pass me.
Questions?
No, I don't have anything else. You guys covered everything. We've got more than I was gonna
Commissioner
say.
Mitchner, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just a couple. So just to build on the biodiversity urban forest plan, will that also include inputs into city code 3235?
There's an entire section of recommended updates to the heritage tree ordinance.
Okay, so, and we'll get to see that before council
You
this time.
absolutely will. It's coming to you August 13th.
Okay. With a strategic plan, I mean, one of the things I was really looking forward to in the strategic plan was their recommendations for funding sources. Is that still gonna be part of the?
Yes,
Okay, so that won't be a thing where it's gonna assign a project to go figure out funding sources.
no, there's specific suggested opportunities.
Okay, are they gonna, is the strategic plan going to discuss the quest to annex at all? Is that gonna be part of the strategic plan?
It will be referenced. Yes.
And then I guess my last question on the strategic plan, will council know, if they don't already know, that on October 14th, when they see this, that we have not seen it?
Yes.
Done.
Sorry, I overlooked.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'll get
We'll
you-
now see if there are any members of the public that wish to comment on this item. If there are none. So now commissioners may make comments on this item. Anyone have further comments?
Thank you. We commented, didn't we?
Yes. Trying to follow a process here. Okay.
So if I can, part of the. Yeah. Yes. Part of the motion that I would be looking for is to include review of the budget. Oh, there she goes. She's always one step ahead.
Let's see what you think of the last one.
So this would not actually be part of the motion. That was just notes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, okay. So in speaking, we're gonna make a change to the timing. We're gonna change from May to April for the budget item.
Does anyone want to discuss this before?
Well, I have a question. So what happened to the bullet that just sank to the bottom of the page?
This was just the background of what you all had discussed for what you want that park process review to be. So that was just kind of what you were discussing, but it wouldn't actually, I think you would be talking about that during that item in April.
Okay, so let me just ask, it didn't happen this year, not for lack of my asking for it.
I think we have a very clear process that we can follow this time.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So it's a park design review process. It's not a park process review.
Design review.
Yeah. And do we need the post-construction or, it's really an evaluation process.
Well, it's not just the process, it's actually doing one.
Well, we could call, and case study, maybe we should say.
You know, a park design process review, which is in the last year's work plan, is different than a park review. Correct. One is the design process
Yeah,
and one
we're
is.
really
okay,
talking about evaluating.
So which is this, the after the park's in the ground and we're saying, how do we do it, or is this, how do we design?
I think it's former.
How do we design a park?
No, it's
No.
reviewing it,
First
and
one.
that would include,
Yes,
that could
the
include.
evaluation.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
park evaluation process.
On my piece of paper, I wrote efficiency. Park efficiency review.
I think in my mind, it's more an evaluation of, did this park meet the goals and ideas that were set out during, you know, the community process, the commission deliberation,
Well,
consultant direction.
it's really a review of the park design.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, any design process of a completed design.
Okay, I think we have a really good process.
Yeah, maybe take process out.
And do we want to say new part, are we specifically talking about parks that were built within?
I was just gonna use the term recent park.
Yeah, as
Sure,
opposed,
recent,
we're not
yeah, good.
gonna review every part, all 46, we're gonna, the ones that would. Okay. So something like 2 years after a park is open, there should be a evaluation.
So we don't need evaluation and review, do we?
No, I feel like evaluation is what you were talking about though.
Yeah,
So this item is just to develop that process, so, right?
Ideally by doing one and seeing how we do it and whether we like what we did and.
right, so maybe we should just drop the development and say add an annual
Yes.
Yeah.
recent park design evaluation.
I-
With us knowing that really the first time will be, you know, we'll try it out and see.
You can do that, I kind of like developing this. You know, having the conversation around that rather than just.
Yeah, but I don't want to just spend the time talking about doing something. I want to
Sitting
be
in a
doing
room.
something.
Yeah.
Well, I want to do both.
We wanna be
Okay.
in a park. Doing it, and then we can be reflective about that and determine whether we wanna change it or which parts we wanna keep and which we wanna change.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
the idea is for this to be a learning experience for the PRC and for staff. It's not about A, B, C, you know, not grading. It's about learning.
But grading is part of learning, I mean.
It's just the focus, it's
C's
the
papers.
emphasis.
I mean,
I think someone got it, we just need the words for this thing we're gonna.
Yeah.
Well, also, on
We,
on some of these parks, they were developed before the community was living there. I mean, and so it'd be great to go back and do surveys and find out, you know, now that people have actually bought. or living
Staff
in
can
developments.
help guide some of this with, you know, we do this all the time, we're taking a look at, we're always measuring and surveying, and so we can come with some ideas and let you guys kind of finesse.
it's
the
not so much
process.
about what is on there, but the clear direction we got tonight makes sense and we understand it, so thank you.
Excellent.
So we like that bullet, I'm okay with it.
is this suitable for a motion then?
I'll move that we approve the 25-26 Parks and Rec Urban Forestry Board work plan. With the additions that are listed there.
And I'll second that. And Alison, you need to close the parentheses for attachment 1.
So we did to this memorandum.
Ah, okay. Sorry.
So we have a motion and a second.
You, okay, so we have Commissioner Bryant.
Yes.
Commissioner Helios.
Yes.
Commissioner Summer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Mitchner,
Yes.
Mayor Davis.
Yes.
Great.
All right, we made it through 6 items and our last item, our staff announcements, updates, requests and committee reports.
Really quick, last Saturday, you heard we had a Pride event. It was fantastic. We continue to receive emails from the community about their experience and how great it was. Just fantastic feedback. So want you to hear that and staff knocked it out of the park as a first time event. So and And then moving forward, we have concerts on the plaza.
How many people did
Or-
you estimate?
We're estimating around 3,000.
Wow.
That's huge for a first timer.
Yeah, it really,
Pictures, the pictures in the paper didn't do it
yeah,
justice.
yes.
It was a great vibe.
Yeah, it was good. It really was. So concerts on the plaza are back every Saturday. We're continuing to offer the music downtown on Wednesdays. And then this week has been our summer staff training for summer camps and swim lessons and all the lifeguards. So starting next week is officially first week of summer for our staff. Official start of summer swim lessons at the new pool. So just running into summer mode. And that's all I have at the moment. And
Good.
then we'll see you all on the 25th.
With that, I think we're
No,
done.
I have a question. Sorry. At the council meeting yesterday, a member of, so I think on the consent calendar, there was something about landings.
Yes.
But I read and reread and I really couldn't figure out what they were talking about, but a member of the public was mentioning what Google is or is not doing about replacing hundreds of trees. And I was wondering if there was something there.
Great timing. So over the past year and a half, staff have been working with Google to come up with a mitigation plan for all the trees that they had removed from the site in preparation of moving forward with the office building development. They started that process. This is just off of 101. You can actually see some land off of 101. And they had a plan to revegetate that property as they were developing the overall office. They have since stopped the construction and actually cleaned the property. Sounds like there may be an interest on their part to now sell the property. I'm not sure, but it's gonna be vacant for a period of time. So we've been working with Google. The agreement is not complete yet, but we're very close. Basically, whatever developer comes in will have the same requirement of the number of trees that was pre-approved for that site must go back. So that's a starting point. And then from there, Google is prepared to provide us with some funding to determine vacant locations for future trees. So basically the number of trees that were required as mitigation for their site will become community trees inside the community, off-site mitigation, with the requirement of the same number of trees on the same site. On top of that, they are paying us some in lieu fees and some fees to get those new trees established. They're actually paying for the trees plus paying for them to be established. And so at the end of the day, their cost will be higher than the per tree average mitigation for all of this.
Right.
So you'll be seeing lots of trees in the community.
They will be helping to plant those trees. It won't be a burden on staff to 800 trees. I mean, they took out like 400.
They will actually be paying for that service, yes.
Wonderful, great.
And the
Thank you.
maintenance.
Yeah.
That was one of the requirements putting in the agreement.
So they are picking up the trees, delivering the trees, getting them in the ground, plus a maintenance cycle.
When can you share that information with the community?
Once that agreement is complete, we will be able to share the specifics.
Great, thank you.
Good question, thank you.
During this meeting at 10:16.
All right.
Thank you.